I am calling this July 17th annual organizational meeting of the Ithaca City School District. First order of business, nomination of temporary chairperson. Any motions?
I have a motion to nominate Emily Tracy Arm, district clerk, to serve as temporary chairperson until the president is elected.
Second.
Motion by Jacob, second by Phil. Any discussion?
I think you're gonna do great.
All in favor? Passes.
By approval.
Love it.
100%.
All right, the next order of business is for Layla to ask me to take the oath.
Lee Tracy Arm, I'm administering the oath. To you, please read the oath as written on the agenda.
I, Emily Tracy Arm, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the clerk of the Board of Education of the City School District according to the best of my ability. All right. I will now administer the oath of the Office of Superintendent of Schools to Dr. Brown.
I, Bell Brown, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of Office of Superintendent of Schools according to the best of my ability.
Dr. Layla.
I, Garrett Blaylock, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the Office of Board of Education member according to the best of my ability.
Sarah Garner.
I, Sarah Garner, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and I will faithfully discharge the duties of the Office of Board of Education member according to the best of my ability.
Dr. Tripp.
I, Bill Tripp, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of member of the Board of Education according to the best of my ability.
Welcome. As a notice for anyone who takes their oath today, we have from now until 30 days from now for you to come to my office and sign the official oath in the oath book. So,
That Jill and I.
you guys are all set. Great. For those unfamiliar, Jill and Sarah were officially sworn in on July 1st. The next order of business is the election of the Board of Education president. I'll open the floor to nominations in just a second, but for clarity's sake, I'm just going to read through the procedure so that there is no confusion. The following nomination process is outlined by District Policy 2210.1, nomination and election of board officers. Any member of the board may nominate a candidate for the office of President of Board of Education. Self-nominations are permitted. Any nominee may decline a nomination made from the floor at their discretion. Each nomination must be moved and seconded before another nomination can be made. A nomination need not be voted on. A second just establishes that there's backing for it. Only after all candidacies have been established will the election of board officers from the pool of candidates be conducted via signed ballot in the next agenda item. So there's no actually voting happening. It's just a motion and a second, and then we move on. We can't, after the motions, we can open the floor if there wants to be discussion among the people who have been nominated, but any questions? Great. Floor is now open to nominate for president of the Board of Education.
I nominate Garrett. Right.
Second.
Noted. Garrett has now been nominated for president of the Board of Education of the Ithaca City School District for the 26-27 school year. Are there any other nominations?
To nominate Adam Kratweiss for President of the Board of Education.
Second.
It's a nomination by Jill, second by Sarah. Adam Kratweiss is now a candidate for the Board of Education for the Ithaca City School District for the 26-27 school year. Are there any other nominations?
Can we nominate you?
Unfortunately, I was a member.
Call the board. Got it.
1 second. Last call. All right, the floor is now open if anyone would like to make any statements or have any discussions before we proceed to item 3.2. Once.
I have a concern, Adam, with your nomination. Reason being is because of last school year, you abstained from the budget vote as a board member.
Yes.
right? Your reason for that was due to, you had said, you and two other board members of state. Was due to the process, but yet you attended several finance committee meetings and you never brought up the process. On April 14th, you and the others brought up the process of the budget, that you saw some concerns about it. Our responsibilities as board members were governing board, were the evaluation of the superintendent, policies for the school district, and the budget. But yet you came with a statement that you were gonna vote for the budget, but yet whatever concern about the process, which was never brought up before, and I said it at the April 14th meeting too. So I have a concern that someone who is going to lead our board is not forthright with their intention from the very beginning as board president, someone that's gonna lead as board president isn't forthright from the very beginning. If you had any issues, concerns about the process, that should have been brought up like weeks, months before. So,
I'm gonna dovetail off what Karen said and take it a step further to say, it appeared to me that you spent more time preparing that speech than you did paying attention and looking at the budget throughout the year. And that was upsetting. Like, the budget is our most important work, and coming to a meeting unprepared with a, I don't know what that was.
Was that a question?
No, I wasn't. Did it seem like one? I mean, Garrick has managed the budget. He's worked closely with everybody. And it would be concerning to me to have a board president who clearly doesn't understand the budget process.
I'd love to respond. First of all, I mean, to say that I don't understand the budget process is just a false statement. Been on the board for 3 years, this is my 4th. I certainly know how the budget is developed. I went to every finance committee meeting pretty much for 3 years, so that's not really a question. The problem that I had, and the reason why I want to be the board president, has to do with the process. That wasn't about the incidentals of the way that the budget was coming across, but the way that the budget was formed in the first place. And I don't feel like I had a lot of control and agency over that last year. I did not like that we did not start the year off by establishing board goals that we all agreed upon. I did not like how agreed upon board goals could inform a budget. I didn't like how we didn't talk enough about the individual items in the budget or allocate money in the budget based on the wants of the board and the needs of the board. So I didn't appreciate those things about the process. And because those things weren't in place, I didn't feel like at the end when we came to the final budget, that the budget was necessarily a reflection of where the board was. It was unclear. And I also felt like the budget was driven more by a presentation by the administration to the board than by the board informing the administration. It's just my perspective. About what we would want, changes we would want to see, things we would want to do, places to allocate money. Did something need to be added? Did something need to be subtracted? So it didn't feel like a very robust process. And I was using the opportunity of that budget vote to talk about that. I think throughout the year, I made a lot of efforts to try to make sure that we could establish some board goals. I know other board members did the same. And that just wasn't really the way things unfolded last year. So it was definitely not a lack of understanding about how a budget is made. It was definitely a protest of the process and the way that it unfolded. And so that's what I would have to say.
I want to clarify something though. You started by saying what I said was a false statement.
That I didn't understand the process of it.
Listen, the evidence points that you did not. So you can say something is a false statement, but throughout the year, we have an opportunity as board members, whether we're on a committee or not, to attend committee meetings. Okay, and you had an opportunity in any finance session, facility session, to ask questions, to dive in, to reach out to the committee chair, to get more involved. And I did not see any of that throughout the year. I didn't see involvement. I didn't see those questions and those concerns be raised until really the very last meeting in what you actually just said was a protest vote. And protest votes as a board, when we have an entire year process to do something, is like, it's like saying, oh, look at our school district, look at this, let me just throw a stick of dynamite in there. And when we talk about being student-centered, that is not student-centered.
Aaron, did you go to any of
Our-
the finance meetings? 'Cause I didn't see it.
Todd, I've been on the board for 6
I was
years.
talking about the finance, did you go to any?
I've been
just
on the
said-
finance committee. I did not feel the need to go to the finance
How do you
meetings
know that,
because I
having
paid
having
attention.
these conversations, how do you know that? having these
Because
conversations-
in the meetings that I have been in and in the recordings that I've watched and in every other interaction, those questions were not asked. The things that he did not know about at the final hour, when it was time to vote, right? He didn't know about things he had an opportunity to ask about the entire year.
I knew about all.
I think you're wrong, and you weren't at the meeting, so I don't think.
Todd,
you're right.
I can watch the meetings
I
online,
was at the meeting.
so.
I was at the
Yeah.
meeting, and that's why I brought up on April 14th, I was a bit flabbergasted with the state. Because I was at the meeting and I never recall hearing, and I went back to a few meetings too. Any questions specifically that they had concern about the process?
Yeah.
Oh,
I-
I would like to just jump in real quick. Do you wanna go first?
No, go ahead.
I also was at many of the finance meetings with Adam and heard, I asked lots of questions, Adam asked lots of questions. I've never seen Aaron at a meeting. I also don't think that being on the board for 6 years necessarily means you could get away with being on the board and knowing nothing and knowing everything. So I don't think the time alone means anything. I think also it's kind of unfortunate that we're making statements that are impossible to say that like you work longer on a statement than you do on like studying the budget. Like that's just like using inflammatory words to get people excited when that's kind of meaningless. I think it's unfortunate to even make that statement. I can say even for myself and having worked closely with Adam, I emailed the board and I could share the emails with the board. I emailed our chair of the finance committee numerous times, both in his role as vice president throughout the entire year and in his role as, I'm sorry.
Role, you said in his role as president.
I'm sorry, I said vice president. And his role as president of chair of the finance committee countless times over the entire year last year. And I would venture, I don't think that I have ever received an email back, both about either of those roles. And I have them all in my email. I've shared some of them with people on the board already. And I had very specific questions about the exact things that Adam raised and my own concerns. And they were never answered, not once. Not to mention on top of that, I am very concerned about having somebody lead both the board and, God forbid, the finance committee again, where we could go back to probably more meetings than not, where we had leaders, both from the district and from the board, speaking about our finance chair as the single person who was driving things, about referencing meetings that he had had with exec team members. Even over the summer, he quote, didn't go on vacation because he was helping work through the budget or helping work through the ITA negotiations when no one else was aware of those things. I was in meetings where I actually called that out in finance committees where there were decisions that had apparently been made where only the chair of the finance committee had been present. I would be happy to share those again as well. And so to have somebody who would be leading both the board and being lauded as this, somehow like genius economist, through internationally known, I think is just so concerning because the entire year last year, he was just kind of granted an enormous amount of autonomy to work on the budget and work with our executive team without anyone else being made aware or being included. And then for board members to actually reach out and request information and questions about exactly what we're talking about right now and have those not responded to is just, how could we possibly know everything that we need to know and be included in what's going on? It just seems absolutely impossible to me and a little laughable to think that it would be the case.
So to that end, though, we're not supposed to conduct our business via email. It's supposed to happen in meetings publicly.
Yes, I was requesting for it to happen in meetings,
Okay,
Erin,
but-
which we do all the time.
Okay, Emily, I got lost in the middle of what you were saying a little bit. So forgive me, I have neurodivergence and it's hard for me to follow along sometimes. But at any rate, these things should happen publicly. As we know, committee meetings allow for the freedom to ask questions that don't necessarily have to be on the agenda. And also, I will add, you know, we're talking about a budget here and we're arguing about a budget that people have problems with the process with, but I think it's very important to recognize that our budget allowed us to, unlike many other school districts, not lay anybody off, give our teachers a significant raise, to be in a position where we're not making cuts. And if we look at neighboring districts, we're in a very, very, very positive position in comparison. So say what you want about. Hold on, let me finish. I'm saying that we have a number of board members and we're trying to, we're talking about electing someone who abstained against the budget because he didn't understand it.
That's not.
But I
it's not-
want-
that's not rude.
Like,
Let me finish my
You
statement
can't
and
say
let me
false
say what, listen. Bottom line is, we have a budget that is actually very healthy and allows us to be in a very good position. And I don't know many other school districts, neighboring or nationwide, that can say that they are in a position that we're in from a budget perspective. So we're saying all of these things about Garrick and processes or whatever. Fact of the matter is, we're in a very healthy position.
What does that have to do with
That's
Garrett?
right.
I'm saying that you guys are accusing things of happening behind closed doors and strange processes. You voted no against the budget. We're talking about a budget, our most important thing that you don't understand, and we have experts working on it.
I would love to say something now.
Yeah.
possible, please. I'm uncomfortable with language that feels like personal attacks, which I feel is happening. So I want to say that. I think that when we have a board development session, I look forward to us creating norms so that we can hold ourselves to a standard of respecting each other. I was having a conversation with someone who said this well, and I'm not saying that anyone hates anyone here, but when there was a board that was engaging in this sort of dialogue, a consultant said to them, you have to love kids more than you hate each other. And I think that's just important to remember. That's one thing. The second thing I wanted to recommend was, I hear the concerns that Karen and I guess Emily have stated about the two nominees. I worry that I personally would like to hear Adam and Derek describe why they want to run for board, because I feel like the conversation right now is responding to concerns as opposed to proactively hearing what they want to do in this year.
can I say one thing? To me, I think a leader is someone who has the courage to step into a position that they might get a lot of hate from the public. And I think for Adam in that moment to say, you know what, I could easily vote for the budget because he did support the budget and openly said he supported the budget. But to say like, hey, I want to make a public statement about the process. And he put himself on the line by doing that. And that's what leaders do. They don't acquiesce because they're afraid of like public opposition. They step up in the moment and they say, hey, there's something that I would like to see different about our process, that going forward, this is something that hopefully next year we can do better, which is exactly what he says. And that's what a leader does. They have courage. So to me, that him doing that was not like him not knowing about anything. It was him saying, you know, I'm gonna put myself on the line because I think that the process is something that needs to be talked about. And that's exactly what he did. So that's all I want to say about that.
And I'm gonna end with that. I agree with you about leadership style. My concern was and is, and going forward for this board too. If you have any issues or concerns, talk about it throughout the year and address it. Because the budget process, when it was stated just like that logo, budget process, I have concerns about the budget process and I'm abstaining from the vote. That was hit hard on that day when we were supposed to vote. It was not discussed the prior meeting in March.
Let's just make a few statements, I guess. I guess about why I want to be the president this year. I mean, I really just have three things that I want to accomplish or help facilitate. I want to lead the board in establishing board goals, the focus on student outcome and direct administration to have those goals reflected in their district work. I want to meaningfully develop a budget that reflects this board's goals. And I want to foster public and open discussions at board meetings so that the community knows what we're thinking. You know, each board member what we're thinking, and what we're trying to accomplish as a board. And I also want to work on sort of facilitating the process by which we speak as one board. And I think if you go back and watch the finance committee meeting, I can think of a specific meeting, which I think was the April meeting, but it might have been the March meeting, where we were all sitting around trying to talk about the tax cap and what percent, how much are we going to dip into the funds balance? How much are we going to ask the community to pay? And it was like, what is the process by which we're going to come up with this number? And then how are we going to decide as a board? And if you watch the meeting, I'm not gonna say that it was a free for all, because that would be a huge exaggeration, but it was like, you know, people were saying different things and calling out different numbers. And then like by the end of the meeting, it was kind of like, all right, we're gonna go with this number, even though we walked into the meeting with a different number. And I remember walking out of that being like, how did this become the number that is now like the starting point number? It didn't feel like, it seemed like a very big decision related to the budget. It seemed like something that all the board members should have something to do with. And it felt like that didn't happen. So I think, of course, we're a board that has obviously different opinions. We can see right everything. But we have to come up with the way that we're going to be directing things forward. We don't vote on everything all the time. But we also didn't do a lot of straw polls, and we also didn't do a lot of, you know, what do you guys, let's come up with a number together. So I think that's just another thing that I would like to see. And I'm going to try to do that if I'm chosen to be the president.
Just a couple comments. When you have a committee, it is the expectation, at least as I understand it, please correct me if I'm misunderstood, that the committee chair would set an agenda in advance of the meeting with the appropriate member of the administration. My expectation, for example, would be that if there's an HR committee meeting, the chair of the HR committee would meet with the HR representative from the administration to discuss what information would be brought forth to the committee so it could be discussed. It would not be my expectation that the HR chair would just show up at the meeting and say, what's on the agenda? Right? So the idea that a committee chair meets with the appropriate representative of the administration to prepare materials and to set the agenda for a committee meeting, to me, is entirely appropriate. Second, board has 3 responsibilities, and I'm going to repeat what my colleagues have said, but I just think it's important enough to be on the record. The board has 3 responsibilities. We supervise the superintendent. That's important. But if we're late doing that, or we don't do a good job on it, there's not a catastrophic, sudden event that happens. We do it a little later, we do it a little sooner. We set policy. Again, we can set things sooner, later, not a policy, make a policy, not a catastrophic event. There's only one action that we take that has a date certain on it, set by state legislature, and that's the budget vote, where we put forth a budget for the public to vote on. That date is set. We can't change it. We can't delay it. And if this board does not put forward a budget for the public to vote on, then we go to believe some form of contingency budget, but basically the district does not pass a budget. We go to some kind of contingency. So to not put forward a budget to the public is to not fulfill the only core duty of this board that has a date certain by New York State legislature. So that is a very important job, and we can discuss it, and we did discuss it all year, and we had a lot of meetings. I also remember that all members of the committee, if they have remedial questions about how budgets are passed and how money is allocated, are always available to meet with our CFO. Right? That can always be done. But when the year of the process goes by and we come to a vote, some board members had a principal position about a number, and there was, I suggest 8, someone else suggests 10. If there's a difference between 8 and 10, we can negotiate that, we can settle on 9. But if committee members simply say, I'm not voting, We can't negotiate that, we can't discuss that, we can't debate that. I'm not voting as a no. And a no does not move forward a budget for the help to vote on. And the consequence of that, to, you know, to your point about putting kids forward, is kids don't get funds for their education. It is true, Todd.
So there'd be no funds. No.
They don't get the budgeted amount, they get the contingency.
Right.
And the contingency in this case would be, you know, X million dollars less, so they lose that money.
They're working budget.
Not the extra money that was in the budget, they lose that money, right? They lose the increase.
I just want to be clear on what we're talking.
I'm saying you're right,
Yes.
right? And by the way, I do appreciate that you came with a principal position and a number that we could have debated, so thank you. Thank you. So, I mean, I'm just summarizing here, I want to repeat, to just not vote on the budget after your debate is fiscal vandalism. And I would not support putting forward a board member who adopt that position and seemingly still stands by it.
I didn't hear you say why you wanted to be president. I heard you kind of not being Adam in his process, but I'd like to hear like why you think that you would be the most appropriate person for the role this year.
Yeah, I served last year as vice president under the mentorship of Professor Sean Bradwell. I think he was a spectacular resource for this board. I learned from him, I listened to him, he was a mentor to me. And my goal, should I be elected president, would be to continue the style of leadership that he championed and to move forward in the way we did last year.
Just in response to a couple of those things, I think the committee chair role, having been a committee chair myself, it's very, very different to meet with the exec team, which I also did, and we have opportunities to do that all the time, and I'm really grateful for those. And setting agendas is very different than like spending time kind of helping make decisions and running numbers, and again, just you know, I could go back to a meeting about flyers already having been printed where the final decisions, our exec team and others who were helping work with that, like verbally said, well, we had representation of the board with us who approved this, and that was me sitting in a meeting with them. We had our superintendent describe you working with them over the summer, crunching numbers with a pencil to the point where you couldn't travel. So there were a lot of questions raised. I don't know if that's true, and maybe you were just setting the agenda with them every time, but I certainly was left with the impression countless times, because of your role as an economist, apparently, that you had unique opportunities to be really sitting and thinking through and setting numbers and making plans. So it's just a concern that I had throughout the entire year last year. And so I'm raising now, and certainly saw evidence of that. I think the debate over the budget vote is an important one, and I appreciate your input and feedback about that. And I think that that is one piece of a bigger evaluation of who would be the most effective board president. And again, I just want to reiterate, like we as everyone can see, we are not a strong, cohesive board right now, and we need to do a lot of work to be able to effectively oversee the school district and to be able to support the district in our district leadership in prioritizing kids, as Jacob said. And I, having seen you already in a leadership role last year, and it's interesting that you raise again the importance of mentorship from Sean, which I think was a really important one, and was also a reason why I was hoping to be vice president last year. I was concerned last year when you ran for vice president that was the only thing that you spoke about when you said that you wanted to be vice president, was to be able to be mentored by him throughout the year, hoping to be president the next year, without really talking about anything that you could actually use your leadership role as to better the district or to better the board. And that was kind of confirmed for me again throughout the entire year. Never once hearing back from you on a single email, both in my emails of offering to like help and work with you and Sean, or asking questions or anything else. And so I took it, and I hear from you now the same thing about that mentorship being really important. And as someone who also felt like they were mentored by Sean, I think that that's hugely valuable. But it's not the only thing, and you had an entire year to use that opportunity to kind of show this board what your leadership of the entire board could look like. And I just personally never once saw that, except for the times in which Sean wasn't able to be here and you had to leave the meeting. So I wanna kind of allow us to expand the conversation a little bit and really think about who is always present and at every single committee meeting and was an active participant in every conversation, and also was vice president for a year, also under Sean, so had those same learning opportunities. And somebody that I trust can really kind of help us become a little bit more cohesive, at least to the point where instead of spending time personally attacking one another, we're thinking about how we can best support kids in this district.
Well, a couple responses. Thank you for recognizing that. I did work hard. I did spend a lot of time and I did prepare well for the meetings, and that meant a lot of time. For example, attended all the OACM meetings and went to all the OACM subcommittee meetings. By the way, the OACM meetings are open to all board members. You don't need an invitation, right? But I went to all of them. I went to all the subcommittees. We did the public relations for the capital campaign through that, and all board members were welcome to come, and I went. Okay. So yeah, I did work hard. Secondly, I just think we're just not that business to me now. We come to meetings, we ask questions. We can, all of us, meet with members of the executive team if we need more information, but we're not an email board. Lastly, I could spend some time talking about goals I have in the district. In respect for everyone's time, I mean, you can see how this is going to play out. I don't want to sit here and run a 20-minute position speech, so I won't. But I will just say two things. One is I'm very proud of the fiscal condition we ended up last year. So that's something beyond mentorship. And two, we completed a demography report last year, and I think it's really incumbent upon this board starting this year to take appropriate action on that. And that for me will be a huge priority. So should I be serving as president, I'll stay more, but I'll state one position. My position would be begin the hard work of responding appropriately to that report. And I underscore it will be hard work.
And I have to add one more thing, just so it's clear about the budget. If a budget is voted down and we have to go to a contingency budget, I really stress to all board members to understand what that means. Because yeah, schools will still function, but it's a skeleton and it's scary. And we went through that the year you got elected, Todd. We went through that. That's what we were going through that May when you got elected. And the absolute, not only do we had to scale back anyway, but the fear of what would happen if we went into a contingency budget and what that would do to the district, not just that year, but the subsequent years after, and what that would do to our budget in general is dangerous. So I really stress to all of you to understand what a contingency budget means, because it is not good for kids. It is not good for students whatsoever, or teachers, or our entire community. Can I say something?
I have my hand. Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Dr. Chair.
Oh,
I think you'll be go ahead. I think we've all shared enough about our thoughts, which is good, and I'm a strong advocate of that. And I think we're more than ready at this point to proceed with the election. And feels the absolute need to continue to express their opinion. They're certainly free to do so, but I would urge them not to in the interest of the community. That's all.
Sorry, I won't die if I don't say something, so I'll
Say it too.
I just want to say, board president is a thankless job, and it is a big responsibility, and it's hard to navigate any group of 9 people. So while of course we're only voting for one person, I appreciate Adam and Garrett for putting themselves out there during this last 30 minutes and being eager to help. So I just appreciate you both.
I agree to Jake, what Jake said, I have to say it, which is that I think that there's like a disconnect between this talk about the budget and the talk about everything else before we get to the budget. And Aaron keeps saying and Aaron and Derek are saying that the budget is the most important, a third of the most important aspects, right? Of what a board does, which is absolutely true. And the year that the budget failed was because the public was outcrying and making a lot of protest votes at the ballot about process, about what the district was doing, and had that been reflected more accurately in a budget or transparently, we may not have had that same position, we may not have been in that same position. So I just wanna make sure that we don't disconnect totally, I mean, at all, the process and the goals. I mean, I've had conversations with you, Derek, also where you're like, I'm a budget person, this is my lane, I stay in it, and I can respect that, but after 3 years of being on the board, you have to branch off and be in different lanes. I mean, I'm not the budget person, but I hope by the end of this year, I'm more savvy in it, because I hope to learn from you all about it. So I think it's really important that we just understand that everything's dynamic and interwoven together for each third of our responsibilities as the board. Okay, I'm ready to vote.
Moving to item 3.2, this is the election of the president of the Board of Education. Similar to the previous item, I'm just gonna read the process aloud for clarity. The election from the pool of candidates that is established in the preceding agenda item shall be done via signed ballot. I will distribute ballots to each board member. On each board member's ballot, they will write the name of the candidate for whom they would like to cast their vote and sign or write their own name below it. You have a very illegible signature, please just print it. Any voting member may also elect to abstain from voting by writing abstain on their ballot and signing their name below it. I will collect the ballots, tally, and announce how each board member voted. The details of the vote and how each board member voted shall be included in the official minutes of the meeting. In the event of a tie or no candidate received the majority of the vote, the process for nomination and election will repeat until a candidate receives a majority. Questions? Great.
Let's just do it. Thank you. I got prepared.
Oh, that's you, Emily.
It's another thing for me to lose. I need to not be on the message.
Never happened. Yeah, I never wanted to get home. I like read Calvin and Hobbes, right, and like, or like, what is it where like the notebooks are read out?
Oh, yeah, that's
Bring back the notes.
Okay, I'm gonna read how each member voted. Aaron Croyle voted for Garrett Blaylock. Garrett Blaylock voted for Garrett Blaylock. Jill Tripp voted for Adam Krantweiss. Jacob Schifrin voted for Adam Krantweiss. Sarah Garner voted for Adam Krantweiss. Fox maybe voted for Adam Krantweiss. You guys work on your signature, Fox.
It's a signature, it's not supposed to be legible.
Your vote said most must be legible on the line. Emily Workman voted for Adam Krantweiss.
No, that's a requirement to be a board member.
Derek Yearwood voted for Adam Krantweiss.
No, I do not.
Or I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I thought it was saying. My apologies, I'm terrible. Please don't fire me.
I'll support you, Adam, if you win, but I.
Adam Krantweiss voted for Adam Krantweiss. The total tally is Dr. Krantweiss has 6 votes, Garrett Blaylock has 3, Adam has enough votes to assume the presidency of the Board of Education.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. There it is. Adam, if you would be so kind, please read the oath of the presidency of the Board of Education.
Adam Prentwise do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of President of the Board of Education according to the best of my ability.
Adam now assumes the chair.
Alright, okay, thanks. Okay, so next we will be continuing the board officer election process as we take nominations for vice president of the Board of Education in the same fashion as the president was chosen. So I'll open the floor for nominations.
I nominate Jacob Schiffer, the vice president of the Board of Education.
Second.
Are there additional nominations? Yes, we could vote if you'd like to make a statement before you vote, or if anybody has any questions, we can.
I wrote a little something just, and I think it's like, for me, it's pretty straightforward. I really love kids. I want what's best for them. That's why I ran for board. That's why I'm still on the board. I mean, obviously 1 year, but I think I'm a fast learner. I have experience in sort of leading, facilitating and listening and like helping elevate voices. And there's 2 things in particular, I think, from the board last year that are on my mind, that I would hope to, I guess I would hope to bring my voice and is to help make sure that the board is really about the will of the board versus the will of individuals. I think this came up a little bit in the conversation like the president. But I do think like, and I've fallen into this, right? I sort of like pigeonholed myself as like, I know a lot about curriculum. I write about curriculum. I teach about curriculum. It's what I do. And that doesn't mean that my voice should matter more about curriculum than anyone else's voice. Or somewhere things about like, well, this is like the special ed person on the board, or this is like the counselor person on the board, or the finance person. I think that this is a misunderstanding of how a board should operate. Because we shouldn't be operating by siloing ourselves and then creating fiefdoms, but rather like learning together, openly talking together, and then coming to either a majority or a consensus. And I also, in the same way I said that Emily Casey Arman is, like I'm a nerd about like systems and structures, and I think that there's ways that like we can strengthen like how we communicate with each other, with the community members and with the background and the executive to support them and support them in doing their work and then working together to work. So that's why I want to be VP. Feel free to ask any questions or share any concerns or comments.
So thank you for your willingness to serve for vice president. It seems like you've done your work in reviewing, because you said that's what I want to be, so you probably have reviewed all the policies and everything like that related. My concern with you also is that your abstention from the budget vote. We don't need to go into a discussion over it, but that's a concern I have. That's a concern I had from April 14, and I keep putting out that magical date. So hopefully indeed, because even when you said about board development, yes, it's not one-sided board development. It's 9 of us cohesively working together. Not one group are doing this and one group doing that, but 9 of us working together for the betterment of the district and working with the superintendent and the admin team, not in any silo whatsoever. I mean, when we talk about board goals, we have to be careful. Board goals and district goals. Board goals, how we operate is different from district goals. Where do we see this school district going? So just for us to continue to be aware of that. So thank you for your willingness to serve.
Thank you, and I just want to say everything you just said, just as a shout out to you, Karen. I've learned so much from you, like particularly through your criticisms of me. So I just wanted to.
But to say so.
When I say criticism, I always mean perspective. Right? If you look that way, so I appreciate that. And for what it's worth, and I assume I feel the same. I cannot imagine a world, and I'm committed to a world where I'm voting yes for the budget this year. Because I have a good understanding from like this last year about like what I think should happen for me to feel informed and comfortable about it, so. Last year. Again, yeah, not to. You used the word for it, like not to go back on, like to harp on it, to start the. I just want you to know, like, yeah, I intend on voting yes for the budget this year, because I know it's gonna be a strong process and we have. I feel good about it, so just wanted to share.
There's no other comments or discussion, we can move toward a vote.
Just concur with Karen's comments.
What'd you say?
Concur with Karen's comments.
No.
I'm gonna switch it up on you.
It looked like a T and a half.
Well, maybe it's the only T I'm
Yes.
R.I. There's no T.
I gave, my signature is different this time, and I didn't print it. Good vote, really. That's the one. There's the one.
Adam Grantwise voted for Jacob Schifrin. Sarah Garner voted for Jacob Schifrin. Todd Fox voted for Jacob Schifrin. Eric Blaylock abstains. Emily Workman voted for Jacob. Aaron Doyle abstains. Jill Tripp voted for Jacob Schifrin. Jacob Schifrin voted for Jacob Schifrin. Aaron Yearwood abstains. Jacob has 6 votes, 3 abstentions.
And also under item 4.3, you must take the oath of office. Go ahead.
I, Jacob Schifrin, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the constitutions of the state of New York. That I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Vice President of the Board of Education according to the best of my ability.
Correct.
Congrats. Okay, so that moves us to agenda number 5.1, which is the approval of the consent agenda. Prior to the meeting, I guess there's been some board discussion about how to approach this item. One option is to go item by item and discuss each item. Another option is to call out individual items that people want to discuss further. We can approve a consent agenda minus those items and move those items to the end of the agenda and talk about those at that point. Yes.
I'd like to see us go with the third option. I would like to remove for discussion item 9.1. And that I would hope to have a friendly, small amendment. But we need to be discussed.
Yes, just by a show of hands, how many people are interested in going item by item, reading each item and voting on each item one at a time? Okay, done. Okay, then what I would suggest would be if there are any board members who have items that they would like to remove for discussion, we can make a list of those items and then we can move the agenda minus those items and talk about those items. As item, I guess, 14.xyz at the end of the meeting when we're talking about board business. So if anybody has items that they'd like to remove, we can make a list now and.
We're doing like suggesting removing and then a second, or how does that work?
Don't we do a motion first, or?
How closely are we adhering to this?
We should be close.
Okay.
A medium way.
Like,
You're president.
if you wish to adhere fairly closely to Robert's rules, you should make a motion to remove either an item or a list of items. I believe the language.
I would say, yeah, I have the language, I would just say that if a board member at the table wants to remove an item, I think we should just make a list of the items first, and then we could move it in the appropriate way, but first I just need to know. And I think I would just say if anybody wants to remove an item, that's fine, we'll remove that item, and then we'll only approve the ones that nobody has questions about.
For clarity, if the wish is to move items to the Board of Ed business, that would be one motion. And if there is a different wish to remove an item from the agenda for consideration at a different meeting, that would have to be a separate motion.
I would motion to, well, I guess, Jill, I'm sorry, you said something first, so you have a motion.
My motion would be to remove item 9.1 for discussion at this point.
We're just making a list, right? Not motion.
Just a list.
Okay.
Any other people have items that they would like to remove?
I would motion to remove from the consent agenda 9.4 and 9.6. And 7.12, just because I had questions about it. I'm happy to give more context if I'm after.
We could just talk about them, but if you know at the end. Are there any other items that anybody wants to take out of the consent agenda before a motion is made? Okay. So somebody's gonna make a motion to move the consent agenda, which goes under resolution. But the items that we're taking out are 7.12, so 7.12, 9.1, 9.4, and 9.6. So 7.12, 9.1, 9.4, 9.6, and I'd be happy to entertain motions to move the consent agenda with those items removed.
I motion to move items and.
You just have to do the consent agenda minus this.
Oh, okay, motion to approve the organizational meeting consent agenda as presented with the exception of items 7.12, 9.1, 9.4, and 9.6.
Second.
Discussion? Debate? All in favor? Comments? Passes.
Yeah.
Okay. Change it.
No, I just can't really vote on the meetings of the last meeting that were there.
Well, you can vote on do you read the
Minutes?
notes?
Yes.
So it's just
Okay.
voting.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah, I think you're supposed to abstain somewhere.
Well, then
Then we have to.
can we
vote that.
modify that motion and remove that consent agenda
Okay,
item?
let's modify it. Why don't you read it one more time, and we'll add one more item to be removed, and then we can vote on that item. Also, and that was item
12.1.
12.1.
I'll put in the list.
I motion to approve the organizational meeting consent agenda with the exception of items 7.12, 9.1, 9.4, 9.6, and 12.1. Thank you.
Second.
All in favor of that?
Great.
It passes unanimously. So I'm just looking through. And so that brings us very quickly to Board of Education business. And first we have item 14.1, which is the adoption of the 2026-2027 board meeting schedule.
What are first thoughts on talking about the items that we removed first or?
Well, if talking about those items will inform, other decisions, other conversations, like. I think one of the items that we had removed was about committee meetings, and it seems like we'd have to talk about that before approving a board schedule that would include the committee meetings. So it's probably a good idea to move those to the front, so we have a motion to move those to the front, and we just. do that.
No, we can put those items that were moved from consent as the beginning items, so.
I'd like to speak about 9.1 that has direct bearing on the schedule.
You wanna go numeric, should we go numerically, or why don't we go? Why don't we shall go do that, let's just start with, we'll go in number order, so let's start with 7.12.
So that is now becoming the new 14.1.
Yes, 7.12 now, therefore known as point. Point one, I guess. Then that bumps these other ones that are 1, 2, 3, and
We'll make it.
we'll work it out.
Okay.
Good point.
I pulled that out because I just want to know more about how criteria for who goes on the audit committee, past experience on the audit committee and how folks are. I want to know more about the process.
Yeah.
Please.
I wrote up. So there are certain requirements for a person to be appointed to the audit committee. Audit is the only committee that is legislated that all school districts must have. The requirements include. I'm just gonna do that and then I will tell you the process by which I invite people. That's the charge. Members of the audit committee should collectively possess knowledge in accounting, auditing, financial reporting, and school district finances. Each member of the audit committee should be independent and not be employed by the school or be an individual who previously provided or currently provides contractual services to the district, or be the owner of a company providing goods and services to the district, or be a family member of an employee of a contractor providing services to the district. The member need not be a resident of the district, but is considered an officer of the district for the purposes of sections 3811 through 3813 of education law related to liability for actions arising out of the exercise of authorized powers or the performance of duties of the position. The way the people were selected, first I sent out invitations to this past year's audit committee members. I received declinations from Hey Depew and Jed Ashton. I received confirmation from Christina Rennekamp. Once I received their declinations, I worked with Dr. Lisi to compile a short list of folks who had either expressed interest in joining the committee or who have participated in the audit committee in the past to consider. Mr. Jeffrey Weiss was a new member who had expressed interest in joining the committee. He was the first person I reached out to, after which I reached out in alphabetical order of the remaining people who had previously served on audit, including Mr. Robert Ainsley, Mr. Chris Malcolm, Mr. J. True, and Don Waddell. I emailed one at a time, so I didn't get 4 people responding. And because I did it alphabetically, Mr. Ainsley was the first to reply in her. So I did not contact Mr. Malcolm, Mr. True, or Mr. Waddell.
I think it was on it last year.
She declined. She had a just.
And is that thank you for your work on that process. It's been a lot. That we have 3 members. Is that a normal? Is that process of like alphabetical?
No, that was one that I developed because that's something.
After just a little context, yeah.
Please, yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Yeah.
So there has not been a process as long as I've been here, and we've struggled to get folks to serve. And so I like that process. And I'm hoping, I recommend the board use that going forward. But every year it seems like there's always a question or a conversation about who will serve and how we would do it. And at times we've had to start the year without someone. That's not good for that important. Thank you, Mr. Ainsley. Well,
Question, you said they're not required to be residents of the school district, but are all 3 of these people?
To my knowledge, yes.
How did Hey get a name in the game originally? Was she nominated or she on it?
Yeah, the 3 people who were on last year were Christina Rennekamp, Megan Depew, and Jen Ashton.
Got it.
How would other people in the community know that there was an opportunity possibly to serve on the committee?
We didn't send out a notice or a call for requests this year.
But
I don't know if that's something we've done in the
But
past.
I recall that we do announce it at times at board meetings, and I believe the individual that was named, there was someone after the board voted down that said that they wanted to run the audit committee at one point, but I'm not sure if that person did join.
Yeah.
So community members are aware of it, and there's no announcement, and some are and some aren't.
I guess for what it's worth, I have no concerns or skin in the game with like any of these 3 people. I guess my mind goes to. I don't know if it's a process I don't know if it's concern, I'll just say what's on my mind and then I love reactions. In the instance, if we have two different instances, one where where no one wants to do it and we have three people and thank goodness for them. When there's an instance of multiple people who want to do it. I sort of feel like it would be in the board's best interest to gauge overall interest, because if there's like 6 people who are interested, assumably in the same way that we have like votes for anything, like, would we think that like, it seems like I'd want to know all of the qualified people and for us to make a decision unless we feel like the audit committee's job is so technical that as long as we meet the qualifications, we don't have a concern about you from the past that we would want you to do it.
Also, put the other process that includes an interview, when there have been vacancies on the board, for example, the board put out a call for potential candidates, people suggested or asked to be interviewed, and the board, that was a confidential session too, so there can be a process put in place if there is a multiple.
And at this point, I don't, oh, for instance,
Go ahead, go ahead.
At this point, I would think we need to put up the process in any which way, because here are 3 individuals who volunteer. Last year, it was encouraged for the board members to participate in the audit committee, and how many of us can really say that we have done that in the past, right? So, before we start talking about the intricacies and details of the audit committee, let's show up at the audit committee. I know one year I was on the audit committee, and last year I wasn't able to participate. So to better know the committees, it behooves us to just go to these committees to get awareness.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I was on the audit committee one year also, and I guess I have concerns about a process where I think where we're not necessarily vetting or interviewing the candidates, and I spoke to one of the members of the audit committee from last year, and they said that when they were selected to the committee, it wasn't really a robust process. They would have liked to be interviewed, they said, but they weren't interviewed. So it just makes me wonder how we're selecting the person, and if we want to put just a light criteria in place that somebody's going to be meeting with the candidates and talking with them, and if we have a variety of candidates, maybe choosing among them, and letting the community know, giving them time to respond, as opposed to just kind of choosing from a list. That's just my perspective.
Yeah, and I mean, fair to your point, you're right, everyone on the board should be paying attention and as support as possible for the committee, but I think they're mutually exclusive, right? We're talking about like you saying, if you don't go to these committee meetings, you shouldn't have the right to then say who's doing the auditing, and I think they're mutually
I didn't
exclusive.
say that, and who's doing the auditing is a company that's doing the audit. So I didn't say that. Be specific with your wording.
Thank you.
Yes.
But they are mutually exclusive. So I think we do have a right to say like, hey, we want there to be a good vetting process, and we want there, to have more, I guess, a role in allowing these people to be in the role that they're in. So that was something.
Is this
Well, I was just, in the interest of like moving things
Yeah.
forward, I think that people have already expressed interest in like creating board holes and other things. Unless somebody has an issue with what is actually listed in the agenda now, I think that Adam can add this to a list of things that we might want to talk about changing the process next year, and there's lots of opportunities to do that, but I think at this exact moment, unless we have an issue with the theme.
Well, I don't know these 3 people, so I don't know if I have an issue, but
Yeah.
But my question is, before we vote on it, is it possible to put out a message to the community about this committee, see what we get, and then just do kind of a pilot, like conversational interview process, and then maybe vote on it at a voting meeting before the school year starts?
I would advocate at this point to move forward personally, again,
I agree with that.
again, raising the fact that it has been historically kind of hard to, and these people aren't like people who are making, but
Right.
just.
I also heard that historically it hasn't been advertised to the public. So I'm just wondering
That's
if
common.
that would make a difference. I mean, we get communications all the time from ICSD, a little tagline at the bottom saying we're looking for participants in the audit committee, here are the qualifications, and see if there's any bites. I mean, it is a short amount of time, and we already have the 3, so I don't see a necessarily like a downfall with using this as a trial period to try it.
I would disagree with that. I'm in agreement with Evelyn that we just move forward with this.
Yeah, I do think there is a downfall which is that the process, although we are not, personally, I would like to see a different process. But I think that like you ran a process, it was the effective process that like you did in the moment, and we have 3 people that are willing and able and we don't have reservations about. Personally, I would be curious if we took a poll and said, in the future, would we be interested in a process that accounts for if there's more interest than 3? I would love to see it not be randomized by alphabetical for next year. I would because I don't even think it's a board development question. I think it's just is this something that we would like to see happen? And then for us to vote. That's just my perspective.
Survey the board, then vote on the item for this year.
Yeah, survey the voter board to see if it's something that we want. I guess Dr. Brown or Emily or who does it?
This year I reached out to the previous years and sent the invites.
Okay, so we can decide if we want to provide direction in the future. Okay, so by a show of hands, should we make this a future agenda item to talk about it and change the process maybe for the future, or maybe keep the process? By a show of hands, would anybody like to talk about this in the future meeting? Raise your hand if you want.
Talk about it, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Fine. So we'll talk about it at a future meeting and we'll vote on it for this meeting.
Can I ask, when it comes to agenda items, Emily, do you have like, how do you capture, like when we say something like that, like, you know, we're gonna talk about this at all, like, where does that go?
When I review and do the minutes, there's a section for action items. I'll keep a running tally of action items because it's not an official vote of the board. I can't include straw polls in the minutes.
So will this pop up at next meeting or?
There's a document that exists, Adam knows about it, where we pencil in future agenda items. Following each meeting, I will populate that document. And when the board officers meet with the superintendent to set the agenda for future meetings, they discuss which of the items be covered or pushed down to the later.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Emily, and I wanna be clear, this is not a criticism of like the work you did, although you are making that face. So I appreciate the work, I appreciate the audit committee, thank you so much.
We can call a question to make a motion to vote on what was once item 7.12, which now will be item 0.1.
I move that we vote on item 14.1.
Second,
Okay, motion made by Jill and seconded by Jacob. Everybody in favor of that?
Oh, any discussion?
Yes, any discussion?
I just wanna thank the 3 individuals for volunteering to
Yes.
serve
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
audit committee for this upcoming.
If I may, the language used to move it wasn't sufficient to actually approve the resolution. I need you to read the actual
Well, that's
motion.
to 7.1.
I'm so sorry.
Let's see, I move that Adam, that Robert Ainsley, Christina Marie Rennekamp, and Jeffrey Weiss be appointed as community members to the audit committee and are hereby appointed as audit committee members effective July 1st, 2026 through the July 2027 annual reorganization meeting.
Okay, moved by Jill, seconded by Emily. Any other discussion, questions, comments, debate?
I'm just gonna abstain from this vote because I do believe that I think process is like my number one thing right now, and I just feel like if this is part of the board, this board didn't have a say over this process, so I'm not knocking you at all, Emily, as well, that's why I'm abstaining. Because if it were up to me, we would make the process now and do it. Before I started.
for what it's worth, then you might, based on my understanding of abstention versus vote no, if that's your rationale, you might vote no. Because abstention would be you lack the information, whereas vote no would be I think, am I right?
Well, I disagree with the process, but I don't know if I disagree with the people.
I think you can decide.
One can abstain from
Y'all, if
many
you want
reasons.
this meeting to move forward, you don't need to explain why you're voting, you just vote that way. Okay, I don't mean to but
I disagree, I actually like the fact that the board is informing the public on why they're making the decisions that they're making, because I think that's the only issue that we've had in the past. Is we're not as transparent as I think people want us to be at times, and I think it's good for the community to hear why we make the decisions we make. I think it's good to have public debate. So that's just my first.
Listen, it's great. I'm just saying, like, listen, these are very long meetings.
Yeah, that's what we signed
I
up
got
for.
2 jobs, y'all. This is a volunteer position. If we cannot like dissect every single thing to the point of like this minutiae, I would really appreciate it.
Yeah, I don't know, I would not characterize you stating why you intend on voting in as minutia.
No,
Okay.
this extended conversation afterwards is really like,
And I'll say I find it helpful. But I just wanted to share a different perspective.
Yeah, I disagree with that. I feel like there's 9 board members.
this is a really great example of what I'm talking
No,
about.
no, but that's.
We should just stay while you're not voting and then move forward.
You can also share your opinion, and then we can share our opinion,
Yeah.
and that's what the beauty of a 9-member board is.
So I know, I might just have to leave early, y'all. That's,
And it's also your problem.
I know this.
Okay, so, all in favor of passing this motion? All opposed? And abstentions? All right, thank you. The motion passes 8-0-1. We can now move on to the next agenda item, which is gonna be now items, gonna be hard to keep track
It
of.
was 9.1.
14.2. And 14.2 is the former 9.1, I think.
Yes.
Which is the designation of regular meetings and discussion sessions of the Board of Education. We'll open it up for discussion. First, I think.
You wanna move it first?
Let's
or-
move it first, okay. Go ahead. Would you like to move it?
I'd be happy
Do
to.
you see it on the 9.1?
Thank you. Be it resolved that the Board of Education will meet twice monthly on Tuesdays. A discussion/voting session for in-depth public discussion and a voting meeting. Be it further resolved that the combined discussion voting meeting will be held when necessary with prior notice. Be it also further resolved that the Board of Education meetings will be held at 6:00 p.m. in the boardroom of the district offices, 400 Lake Street, unless a public announcement is made noting a change or a virtual meeting is required.
I guess second, yeah.
Moved by Joe, seconded by Jacob, and discussion.
Here's why this bothered me a bit, and that's that it has been my observation over a number of years now that the board has enough business that we should be meeting more than twice a month on occasion. So my proposal is that we change the first line of the resolution to be it resolved that the Board of Education will meet at least twice monthly on Tuesdays. And then I think we could avoid the somewhat awkward and sometimes difficult calling for special meetings. I mean, we would still call for special meetings, but we would have essentially the permission to do so or the encouragement to do so.
Yeah.
Should board members feel that there is enough business for us to get to, because I've often felt as if there's a need to rush and a discouragement of lengthy discussion.
Yeah.
That's my thought.
Yeah, personally, I don't mind the friendly amendment. If others do, I can object in that minute. I also just want to add, it's a good time to add that special meetings, just for the record for all board members to know, can be called by any member of the Board of Education by giving notice in writing to each member of the board and superintendent of schools at least 24 hours preceding the date. So in the event that somebody on the board wished to add a meeting to the calendar, you also have, I just want to remind everybody that you have the power and authority to do so.
I might not understand, given that we can have extra meetings needed, why is this language necessary?
I think it gives us permission to meet more than twice a month. I think there's been
An expectation to.
Yes.
well, possibly, yeah. I think there's been a sense that we meet twice a month and that's it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it is my sense that we have more work to do than twice a month will necessarily allow us. So this says at least twice a month. And I know it conflicts with the
It
calendar.
does not.
Oh, good.
Well, I mean, it does conflict with the draft calendar that was, but this is, I don't see an issue, this doesn't contradict our policy, which already states that a regular voting meeting shall be held at least once per month. Our
Okay,
policy does not limit us to two.
okay. Then why does this read as if? Why does the at least not in here? Could we,
The
Yeah.
resolution language is different from what the policy says.
okay, then let's make it congruent and add at least here.
Should it be at least once a month? Since that's what the
Well,
policy.
but because we have a calendar for next year, like,
It's not proposed.
yeah.
So we have a calendar in place for next year, which we've always had for some time, where it says it may be twice monthly. We have a policy that says at least, we have a policy that says that we could call special voting meetings. I don't see where, this isn't just in line with the calendar. And we have committee meetings that meet regularly throughout the month too. At first, Jill, I thought you were proposing that we meet more than twice a month, and then I was gonna say, that's not what we signed up for, right? Because people need to know ahead of time what the plans are, but not changing any which way. So
So are you more comfortable with that?
we're comfortable with even meet twice monthly, because we know that we go back to the policies that are in place.
How many people do you need to have a special meeting? Is it just one? Yeah, so I mean, not everyone has to attend the special meetings, because they have work or other obligations, but.
But special meetings have to be adhered by as dictated in the policy too.
And people have been very reluctant.
What's the harm in just putting at least, like, why are people, what's the objection to just the modification? Just seems like a friendly,
It was meant to be friendly.
Yeah. Yeah,
is there,
I find it unnecessary, but I don't.
But not unfriendly.
Yeah, but it's kind of.
I think it's nice that things can grow.
I think issue with this is that if the friendly amendment is to allow for the calling of special voting meetings, it contradicts what this established resolution is, which is to designate the regular meetings and discussion sessions of the Board of Education. So we would have to change it to designate the regular meetings and discussion sessions and allowance of special meetings as well. The special meetings are distinctly different from regular meetings.
what is it in the discussion session is different from what we're talking about?
I'm sorry, the discussion session in the title just implies this work
Part of the
session
regular.
of committees.
Oh,
We have a policy that talks about how to call meetings, and that was what I was reading from earlier, about special meetings can be called by any board member, et cetera. So I think, and it sounds like what Emily is saying is that this is informing the calendar that's gonna be written with meetings appearing every 2 weeks on the calendar, and then if board members wish to call additional meetings, because we already have a policy that says we can call meetings as we wish, we really don't need to amend the language because we already have the ability to do that, whether it says it here or doesn't say it here. Therefore, we can leave it as is.
It could say on the calendar
with an asterisk.
that this calendar is provisional based on,
Yeah.
and may have an addition of special meetings. But again, people almost never ask for special meetings.
That's true.
And we often have concerns about business that we haven't gotten to or haven't really discussed in great detail, which a number of us have made a commitment to do. So that's all I'll say.
Okay, so we have we have two options. We can move forward with the language 9.1 as is. We could vote on that language, and if it passes, then we move forward, and if it doesn't pass, we can change the language to include at least. I guess we have a motion on the table to vote on 9.1. So we could call the question, we could vote on it if it fails, because members want to add the language at least. Then we'll propose another resolution, just trying to.
Or you could vote on approving the proposed friendly amendment.
Well, the motion on the table right now is to approve as presented.
Okay.
So if it fails, or if it's withdrawn, then we can change the motion.
You want to withdraw the motion, you may know.
No, I don't. I think it makes more sense to do it this way.
Okay. Okay, so then we'll call the question, all in favor of voting as written originally, by a show of hands. Those opposed? And abstentions? Okay, so the motion passes. Sorry. Okay, that takes us to item number 14.3.
Yeah.
14.3, which is called 9.4. So we can take a look at 9.4, the designation of Board of Education standing committees.
Yes,
Jacob, you called that one out.
I did. First, if it's helpful in the board packets and maybe I'm waiting to add it to the agenda, if people want to speak.
Aren't you supposed to pass a motion first
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes,
before any discussion?
Indeed,
good point.
indeed.
So,
So I would like to entertain motions for item number 14.3, formerly 9.4, designation of Board of Education standing committees.
I don't think we should do this in the way it is, so I guess I would motion to have a discussion about 9 point, I mean, I don't wanna motion it, cause yeah,
I'd like to move for designation of Board of Education standing committees, that the Board of Education shall continue the use of standing committees for the fiscal year 2026 to 2027 as follows, listing the 6 committees.
Second,
thank you both.
By Karen, seconded by Eric.
So in the back of the board packet that you have, Emily, thank you so much, because I know I sent this last night, but I just got it. It's like it's from the Effective School Board, a book that I had written about the Emily Workman recommended to me one time, and I have recommended to you all, and I recommend to anyone sitting here going, what is that book? It's a great book. And I think that when I read their book and when I reflected on how our committees function, I guess I had concerns about whether the committees are meeting their intended purpose. So I'll share a little bit of context. I'll speak for curriculum committee, which I was the chair of. I think that our committees separate out the categories that are actually meant to be together. So it's hard to have a curriculum conversation without also having an HR, a policy, and a finance conversation. I think that it leads to siloing. Again, as the person who was the chair, I feel like I actually had frankly inappropriate access members of the exec team to do business that was not necessarily voted on or approved by the board. And I think the same is true of just about any committee. When I read their suggestions, which were about make sure that the board names the committee chair as opposed to the committee, that the board names the committee members, I guess, as opposed to the president. That we have clear deliverables for the committee, that we've decided as a board, hey, here's the topic. Not finance or not curriculum, but something that involves all like screen time or staffing at middle school, so like whatever that is. I think that it would be, and to set a due date for those deliverables, because right now we have a committee structure that essentially never ends. If you look at the calendar, or if you look at the last page of our board packet, we are about to have a policy work session, a human resources work session, and a curriculum work session before the board has even had its first official meeting of the year. And I think that's a problem, because I think to use the books work, I think it creates fiefdoms of individual chairs, and I include myself as part of that. So what I would recommend is that I do think there's 2 committee structures that are highly relevant and important. One of them is the legally required audit committee. One is the component of the HR committee that does tenure reviews. It seems like that's a really great innovation that the other state school district did that a lot of districts don't have, which is like adequate sort of like progress monitoring and making sure that we feel really good about tenure appointments. But outside of that, I recommend that we hold off on voting for this until as a board, we have had goals set, and then we create time-bound working groups to prevent us from, as individuals, from getting unnecessarily into the weeds of superintendent business, and to target our attention. So we can say, if this is a priority for the board, let's have a specific working group with a specific goal where the entire board has talked about it before they meet. Those are my 2 cents, slightly more than 2 cents on the committees.
And in that sense, the board is also informing the work of the committees rather than the committees operating them independently.
Yes.
I like that.
makes a lot of sense to me.
Doesn't make a lot of sense to me, and I read the material and I understand it. And I'm not saying I couldn't be convinced of it at some point in the future.
Let me convince
Not now, at some point in the future. And, I think the committees serve a valuable purpose and that they work hard to inform the board and advise the board. And any committee I've served on in this district or any other district knew very well that it was there to advise the board, that it was not in charge of decision making and that the committee existed only as part of the board. So, and I'm most familiar with both facilities and human resources. I certainly could see some hybrid. I could imagine, I do agree that curriculum perhaps should be discussed and reviewed as part of a committee of the whole, where the whole board is present. And that is a function that we used to use many years ago on the now defunct Board of Public Works. And that is that we met as a committee of the whole and discussed particular topics. And I think that certainly any of the subjects that we go with here could lend themselves to that. But very clearly curriculum lends itself. So that's one suggestion that we, rather than, I was trying not to say throw the baby out with the bathwater, but I'm gonna say it. And I do think committees have a value and I'm not ready to support a major change.
I guess I'm curious how you talk in committees about things that are so interconnected, like finance and facilities.
They were combined sickly.
Oh, they were combined, okay. And I also wonder about how we can avoid situations of the chair being the mouthpiece for, like what you were saying, happened with you, so to speak, at curriculum. What appealed to me about your presidency is that I got the sense that you're fielding from us, like anybody with something to talk about, we can talk about it. And I wanna know how that happens at a committee that's already preset of who's on it. And I know we can all attend it whenever we want, but if the agenda is being set by the chair, I'd want some maybe guardrails or parameters around that so that it really feels more collaborative in the board as a board, as opposed to just the committee.
Well, yeah, because it raises the question that like a committee starts on day one, a person is elected to be the chair, that person often meets with the administration to determine the agenda, and the question is kind of like, well, what is that person doing? Like what is the basis for the nature of the work? And I've experienced different things like when I was chairing curriculum committee, and I took over from somebody who was chairing before, and the committees looked very different. It seemed like, well, that person wanted to do those things, I wanted to do those things. Not that decisions were made, but discussions were chosen and had, and then maybe things were brought back to the board, but it wasn't board informed.
Yeah.
That's all. Karen, did you want to say?
Yes. First of all, this document was sent at 8 p.m. last night. I didn't go in and see it. I saw it this morning for a 9 a.m. meeting discussion. And a loaded discussion around transforming the committee structures when they are standing committees. And when we have a policy that talks about committees and all. So what we did, why these are standing committees, and go back to Robert's rules of looking at the definition of a board standing. Last year, we combined the facilities and finance because we had the capital project vote and we brought it instrumental, so you could always do a combination. There was discussion last year about a charter for committees, so we could look into that. I'm not in favor of doing any upheaval, restructure of standing committees, and I'm in agreement with Joe about that at this time. And then if Jacob, you'd said about, or was it Adam, I forgot, sorry, about committees meeting before the meeting, if this is a draft calendar, if we want to shift committee meetings until after the first board meeting, we can do that. After a board development session or board goal session, we can do that, because this is draft at the moment, just to keep the working going, because we know during for the start of the school district, usually July is the re-org meeting. It's a bit low because we may not have all staff here. and then we start in August. So that's why the committee meetings were just put on the calendar at the moment.
And if we do not restructure, I certainly would be in support of moving back, like the community that do this. And for what it's like, I think that I understand a little bit more facilities and to a degree finance. I would highlight that like my specific, like the things that I'm most concerned about are the workings of policy, human resources, and curriculum. So that in policy is a core function of the board. So rather than having a standing like policy committee, I think as a board, we should say, what policies are we going to work on? That was not part of the work last year. And when I reached out saying, hey, I would like to, like, I'd like for us to discuss this policy, I was essentially either ignored or told no. And human resources, I think I appreciate the work that happened on it, but I also think it, again, not a board, not necessarily a board function, something that should be talking as a whole group committee. And curriculum, again, if we had a specific project where we said, hey, like we are, personally as an individual board member, I'm very interested in like instructional coaching, curriculum coherence, etc. If that was something that the majority of the board wanted to take up, that makes sense. But I think like taking it up, like electing committee chairs based on not even knowing what the topics are, I think is I just think it's a concerning practice. And I would advocate for us delaying this item from the consent agenda. I plan on not voting for it right now, and I hope that others join me.
I think we do need to, I think we're having like two parallel conversations right now. We're having a conversation about whether we want these specific committees to be in place. And then we're having a conversation about how the committees are run and how agendas are set and how the board collaborates. So just as we're thinking about like where we stand, I think that those are two very separate pieces. And we talked at length last year about the need to be setting agendas differently, about talking as a full board. And so I think that part of what you're talking about, Jacob, could be improved dramatically, no matter if we get rid of the committees or change the committees or not, by setting new processes in place where we're actually working as a full board to set the agendas, to more regularly report out about what was happening at those meetings for anybody who wasn't there, bringing more discussions to the larger board as soon as something comes up that, I think that was part of it, is that the discussions just continued there when there was probably opportunity to then bring it back to the board. So not to say that one is right or one is wrong, and I don't know completely where I even stand, but I do think that those are very separate, and that being able to change the processes, which I think like I love the idea of going into committees again this year with the processes that we've been following in the past. And so I would definitely not support that, but that is different from eliminating the committees entirely. So I also, like Jill and Karen, would not support deciding something so dramatic as like not having committees and doing working groups. I've said before, even trying to decide what specific topic would be focused for a working group. I think that we have so many issues that we would want to be focusing on that would be, I can imagine having like 25 working groups if we all had our druthers about that. But my question for me here is like, if we're voting on this, like, are these the exact, we did combine finance and facilities last year, like, are we doing that again? Do we need to talk about that right now? If curriculum is one committee specifically, that we're kind of like, do we need this as a whole committee? Do we want, like, those questions are the ones where I am wondering if we can vote on this right now, or if it's more a question of like, do we need to have a discussion about, even if we have committees, exactly what they are and what's combined and how we utilize them.
I think a yes vote for this means that we're affirming the continuation of the 6 committees. A vote of no would mean we'd have an opportunity to rework it and put it on the August 11th agenda for those who wanted to do that in whatever way they want to do that, either by eliminating some committees, by talking about how the committees are going to be informed, whatever. So we can first call the question if there's enough board members that want to keep the committee structure as the 6 committees, and it passes, then they'll stay like that. We can still have a conversation if the 6 committees continue to exist, how we want to work them, I suppose we could decide as a board in the future also if we want to eliminate a committee, even if today we vote to keep all 6 committees.
These are standing committees, okay? And then we have the policy about committees, right? So I'm in favor of us just proceeding with the standing committees. That's what we did last year. We did not combine facilities and finance until, I don't know if it was September, October, when we saw there was a need to. So there's still some working of the process and charter and so forth on committees. We could do that at a later time, but to get the board standing committees on our books and records for this year, we could change it up or discuss that because that impacts policy.
What, when you say that, oh, it
Well,
impacts the
there's
policy.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
I gotcha.
also, and if your document is part of, Jill's not going anywhere until we finish.
I've been looking at the snacks.
If your document that you said is supposed to be part of the package, please make sure you put down the origin of the document, because.
I would do that, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this, this document is something that I thought would help me articulate, and you're right, I did send it late, I got it late, I do apologize, I typically don't like to do things like that. For what it's worth, I encourage folks to vote no. If we were to revisit, I would encourage us to resolve to right now, approve the audit committee and the HR committee for like tenure reviews and to hold off on the other ones that it feels like.
Should it be called the 10-year review tenure review, because HR is
We'll
broad.
discuss it if the motion fails, right? But I think that again, it seems like there is no urgency and there's concerns shared by at least some folks about process and purpose. But the will of the board will see.
Additional discussion, comments, debate, questions? Okay, so we can call the vote. All in favor of passing motion 14.3, designation of Board of Education standing committees as is? All opposed? Okay, so the motion does not pass by 4 to 5, I guess, 4 yeses, 5 noes. And so that means that we have to revisit this question. We could revisit this question in a discussion now and talk about it at the board development session and then come back to the board and talk about it. Or we can put it on the agenda for August 11th. Those are the options.
I would motion to designate the, like I said, I would vote to designate the audit committee and a tenure review committee. And then to add the creation of the dish, like how we are handling the rest of the committees on the August 11th agenda. I don't know if that's 2 separate things though.
I think it would be appropriate to make a motion to establish what committees you mentioned, and then there's no need to make a motion to add something to a different agenda. That's not, that's.
So I would, okay, so then does my original motion stand,
Motion to designate an audit committee and a tenure review committee.
for the 26th?
Emily, can we have a brand new committee that does not have like a structure around it, calling it a tenure review, or does it need to remain HR? Since that falls under tenure.
That's why I keep stressing standing committees.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's an old term.
Our board policy states the Board of Education may from time to time establish committees whose membership will consist of members of the board. The board shall establish a charge for each committee, and the board officers have the authority to appoint committee members. The president of the board shall serve as an ex officio member without voting privileges unless needed for a quorum of all committees to which he or she is not appointed. Board committees shall undertake studies, compile reports, and make recommendations as charged by the board, but shall not act on behalf of the board. The board may establish standing or ad hoc committees and reserves the right to terminate any committees at any time. Any official policy level action shall be the sole discretion of the full board. The board is in no way obligated to follow committee recommendations. The board has the right to accept, reject, modify all or any part of a committee recommendation. So
we need a charge. You can't just have a new committee without a charge, from my institutional knowledge of 7 years as a board member, but I recognize that that doesn't matter. So You need a charge, and so to Karen's point about maintaining the committees, I think it's important to not just randomly change a name. And also, I cannot recall precisely, but I believe at least audit committee is mandatory. I don't know if there's another one, and then others are optional, so is it only audit that is mandatory?
Only-
Okay,
So audit is mandatory. We have a human resources committee in which we would like to review tenure and have it be that. We don't have to change the name of human resources committee. We can keep the name and inform the charge later anyway, or we could,
Yeah, I withdraw my motion and cause I think that doesn't matter to me. That we should designate the standing fees of audit committee and human resources committee.
okay, sorry, I recognize this. But being that budget is a year-round process, I would highly recommend as a board that we go ahead and get that committee out there, at least finance and probably facilities, considering everything, because that is the amount of work that needs to be done in those. And then we can revisit and amend these committees at any time. This is not like we vote now and we cannot vote again until next year. So I am concerned, I mean, all of these committees actually, the least important being curriculum. But I'm concerned that if we just like say, oh, we'll discuss it at August 11th meeting. These committees have important work that need to be done. We don't know if we're gonna have a consensus at the August meeting. If there's anything that needs to move forward in these committees in the meantime, while we're whatevering them, I think it's important to keep the standing committees and do whatever we want with them moving forward.
I hear, I just an alternate perspective, so I hear what you're saying, and I don't want necessary work to pause. I guess zooming out like to my perspective of sort of like how my experience on the board last year was that some of the work, maybe not some, maybe a lot of the work happening in the committees was actually full board work. So I'm not advocating for just
No, Jacob, listen, I hear you out. I completely hear you. Well, and here's the thing, you and Adam are board officers. You set the agendas. So you can change this at the very next meeting. I'm just voicing my concern. We can all vote however we want. That pausing this I see that it could be very problematic to pause all of these committees.
Yeah, I just want to respond with why I don't think it's problematic and why I think it's an opportunity.
Okay.
So I think it's an opportunity because we do not need to stop any work in curriculum, policy, finance, or facilities. In my mind, I think we should be stepping back and going, well, let's look at those things that we think need to be happening in committees and actually look at it as the board. Because I think that, again, so that's my quick response. That's my motion, and I am curious if anyone wants to second it around audit and human resources.
What is your motion?
Motion to designate audit committee and human resources committee for the 26-27 school year.
I mean, I would agree with Aaron just on the finance facilities piece. I think it is important to get that going, so.
do you want that as a standalone committee that's working, or do you want that to be the work of the full board?
Well, I think it's both, because there is so much, it is a lot of work, and it's not something the entire board can participate in, and I think. You know, the concern that you guys are raising is valid of like, how do we make sure that what that committee is doing is reflective of what the board wants, right? And we don't have like a rogue chairperson that's, you know, doing things that they think is what's best. So, but to me, like getting that committee in place, I do think is so, and I think there's an opportunity to then like create the structure on how those committees operate. You know, we could do that at the next meeting. So it's just,
I know it's a little messy, but you know, discussion is messy. May I recommend that we vote on the first motion, because I don't think there's any controversy around audit and HR, and then you could make another motion. That's good.
No,
Then we go, no?
that sounds a bit too messy. Okay, so we voted out the standing committees. Now you want to selectively vote in some of these standing committees.
I just wanna try to make progress, so I the way I see it, if there is a consensus, or certainly the majority and probably a consensus on audit and HR, then I would just recommend that we first do that, because if finance and facilities were added, personally, I think that would change my vote. And so, you know, it's like,
So why would it change your vote?
I am not sure what the standing business it would be of the Finance and Facilities Committee that would cause us to determine a chair and have them start working without us talking about it in the August 11th meeting. So I'm just not comfortable. And again, it's like, it might be to a certain degree a philosophical difference on how committees should function.
Should this be a special meeting that we have? That's the
God knows.
well, I mean, cause yeah,
I mean, it could be, right? Like
I don't think God, no, I think it's a really big topic.
Okay, fine.
It's a really big topic where individual board members, we individually as a board were requested if we, whatever committees we want to select. And who are the board officers who are going to select board members to the committees, right? So we're talking about the structure because you're voting in, you want to vote in two, and then, okay, you don't have the knowledge about other committees, so you're gonna add two more to this motion. And it just seems like a puppet show at the moment, because we just need to keep focused on the committees. It seems like we have some disagreement about the structure of the committees and the process flow. Okay, we have that disagreement. So why do we need to erase everything and selectively add in? That's because especially we brought up charter of committees last year. So it just needs to be restructured, the process of it. So can we start the year off with the committees and then going forward, before we have any committee meetings, we can look at the charter, look at the structure, look at who's participating.
For one quick note, just around like the board officer thing and like who picks the committee, what it's worth, I'm advocating for less control as board officers over who's on them, because I think that that's part of the problematic nature of things. Is that then I think it was the problematic nature last year, and I think the problematic nature like this year of like a board president or a vice president or leadership team could, and I'm sure over the course of the last 18 years have, like engineer committees to advance an individual board member's reflection notes instead of everyone's.
It's a matter of just people's availability. I don't think everyone signed up for 12 or the 6 committees each signed. So and I don't want to divvy out the board officers have their workload. I don't want to take on some of your workload.
Can I ask a quick process question? It seems like we're back to debating something that we already voted on.
Right.
So,
voted on it.
and so, like, are people advocating for like a revote on it? Like, at this point, we already voted
We voted to.
against this motion.
That's right.
And
I'm happy, like, but it seems like there's more being said about it, which is fine. But I guess at this point, we should either decide like to vote on what Jacob's suggesting or not and move on, or I guess my thought process question is if the board would like to kind of reconsider this, could we like re-motion it and vote again?
There has not, yes, the motion that Jacob made to designate audit and HR committee has not been seconded.
Sorry, not that one, but
Yes, you can vote
So
so
we
the
can
same item
re-vote.
over and over again.
so I
You
guess
wanna
that's
change
my.
the vote, is what you're saying?
Well, I guess I'm just saying like Aaron now and Karen and like
And
people like Todd and
said
Todd,
that,
you're right.
yeah,
And Todd have kind of like have gone back to kind of advocating for voting for all of them maybe.
And I.
Well, I've gone back to the
I
discussion
didn't go
about
back.
that.
I was always in favor.
But we already had the vote, so I'm just saying like either we did stop talking about it.
No,
or we
I
just-
okay, I think we took a vote, voted 5-4, that we didn't wanna pass this as states, so that's over. Now we're moving forward, trying to figure out what do we wanna do. Jacob is making a motion about audit and human resources, which he's,
So can we just vote?
so we can vote on that.
Yeah, 1 second.
You need the second.
Second, I
Thank
second.
you.
So all in favor of adding an audit committee and a human resource committee for the 2026-2027 year. Yes. All opposed? Okay. And abstention. Okay, so that means we do not have any of those committees added back. And the only problem is that we have to have the audit committee. That's not really a question.
I need that. Yeah.
Alright, well, can we take 5?
See, I mean, you don't have to on my behalf, I just been 2 hours.
Go to the bathroom.
Oh, well, let's take 5 minutes.
Take 5
We're gonna
minutes.
take a 5-minute break.
That's a good question.
So we know we realize that was.
Yeah, let me see, when the battles.
Video camera is turning on.
We are gonna resume.
So, okay, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we need to move forward with a couple of items.
I'd like to make a motion to bring back the audit committee, just because we believe we need it. What's the wording I need?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve the audit committee. And then take this conversation to our work session. Come up with some board goals and help those, and they'll have those goals help inform our decision-making process around these committees. Is that part of the motion? That is part of my motion.
Yeah.
That's my ex,
Move-
that's
no,
my,
That's your explanation.
Move the audit.
like to move to
Motion to establish the audit.
establish the audit committee.
Second,
Thank you.
All in favor?
Some discussion.
Discussion, I'm so sorry, discussion.
I'm gonna vote yes, but I'm gonna put on, because we're required to have this committee, I can't vote against it, but I am just gonna put a record. I don't think this kind of piecemeal approach to committees is a good idea.
Other discussion? Okay, all in favor of the motion? All opposed? Abstention? All right. So we have reestablished our audit committee, something that we can meet. Unless there are other motions, anybody can make another motion if they wish to. We, as far as the rest of the committees go, they're temporarily suspended. We can talk about them and put it on the next agenda to decide how we want to vote. That process could be whatever we want it to be, including discussion at the next board development session, and then coming back with a plan that our board, agrees on, and then moving forward. But it's been established by both that we want some kind of a change to the standing. If there's no other discussion or
Your terminology, that process can be however we want it to be. I just want us not to use terminology like that because we have a structure as a Board of Education, so it's not however we want it to be. They'll look into the process.
Agreed.
And how there's a structure in place. Yeah, I see you looking at it.
I'm just curious, when I heard the policy read from Emily, it sort of did strike me that it's like it is our discretion, so. Am I
No,
misunderstanding?
Karen was just saying that it can't be a haphazard process by which we establish the next step. So when I said however we want, she was saying, no, it's not however we want. There's a process that we will have in place with motions.
I understand.
Approving motions, and she was pointing out the language, and I agree.
Thank you, President.
Thank you, Karen. Okay, so if there are no additional motions regarding committees right now, we're gonna come back to that. We can move on to the next item, which is item 14.4, which was formerly 9.6, which is the designation of official news.
I just remember last year during
We
this,
gotta move it, right?
oh,
We
sorry,
have to move it. Here. Would anybody like to do?
I'll move it. Resolved that the Ithaca Journal be designated as the official newspaper for the Ithaca City School District, Ithaca, New York, during the school year 2026-2027 for the publication of all legal notices and such other data as required to be published by law and for which the same may be qualified to act.
A second.
Moved by Jill, seconded by Sarah, open for discussion.
I remember last year, I was like during my first reorg meeting, this item was pulled out, I want to say by Karen, because we don't really have, like, the Ithaca Journal it's hard to characterize that as a local newspaper. And then this year, a common council somewhere voted against it, which thought was interesting because I think it legally have to, but I was like, well, if the common council votes against it because this isn't really local media, then I think I want to vote against it as well. So I just wanted to share that.
Just clarification, I didn't pull anything out, all of these items were individually out, it's never in a consent agenda last year.
You
I
are, yes,
abstained from this, I know that the Ithaca Journal is known as a daily newspaper and we have to, I think we're not policy, we have to have a daily publication. I disagree because I don't see it out daily and it doesn't always come daily to this home, so.
We discuss this every year because my lived experience as a journalist, I can just point out if this policy and law or whatever you want to call it was created, you know, back when our news systems were very, very different and the systemic dismantling of local news has happened since this was written. So yes, we don't have a proper daily publication because very few communities, even small cities that are bigger than Ithaca have an actual local daily newspaper anymore. So it's a problematic one that because we need to have it designated, we've talked to Kate about this, I think, almost always, and I know that Kate Reed, our district attorney, or the council we consult with, you know, we could pull her or BSNK in and as a group and have her come to one of our development sessions to understand it better, but it's damned if you do, damned if you don't, like, it's just outdated.
and I personally don't, I don't think I don't have a desire to have Kate in or anything, I just want to vote no and see if the New York State Media Police come for us. That's all I got. Any other discussion?
Is there another newspaper that would be more appropriate? Right, so.
Well, I think this is the criteria. I looked it up earlier this morning and I could be wrong about this, just from a quick view. General circulation within the school district, published at least weekly and has been established for at least a year, contains news and editorial content, has a paid circulation. And I don't know what other newspapers would qualify, like the Ithaca Voice does not qualify because it's published. Maybe the Ithaca Times, I'm not sure if it has paid. Okay. So I think that's why we always end up with the Ithaca Journal, because we never have another option that meets the criteria.
That's helpful.
And knowing this, that we have a communication team that we get information out to the public.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think we do a good job, Jen.
So advocating for having no newspaper.
Yeah. I just want to throw that out there.
We have to publish legal notices
Yeah.
in a newspaper. And also I believe bids have to be published in the newspaper, so it's not something that can.
Okay, okay. That's fair.
So that's okay.
Any other discussion or comments or questions? So we'll call the motion to a vote. All in favor? Opposed? Saying. Okay. 8-0-1, motion passes. And that,
Evan,
two. Oh, two
Karen
people?
and I.
Oh, Karen, you abstained also, I'm sorry. Okay, 7-0-2, motion passes. And that means we will move on to items 14.5, which is former item 12.1. How's that? Yeah, 12.1, which was the approval of the June 30th meeting, because some board members weren't at the meeting or on the board yet. And I will entertain motions.
Motion to approve the minutes of June 30th, 2026 voting meeting. Anyone want a second?
Moved by Jacob, seconded by Todd. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? And abstention? Sorry. The motion passes 5-1 to 3. 5 yes, 1 no, 3 abstains.
Who was the no?
Aaron?
You voted no to approve minutes?
I thought I voted yes, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I
I
just
have
got
that
a
as
buzz.
yes.
I thought I voted yes, but I don't know, man.
So it's 6.
We'll have to review the tape. Let's pause the video.
Seriously.
Okay, so six yes, 0 no, and 3 abstentions. Okay. That brings us to our actual agenda items, which hopefully will be sort of, you never know. Okay, so now we're in the real 14s. So we now go to item 14.4, we're pointing point 1 now, 14.6. Which is the adoption of the 2026-2027 board meeting schedule, and I will entertain motions.
I move to adopt the 2026-2027 board meeting schedule as presented in the draft 26-27 board meeting schedule addenda.
Would anybody like to second that motion?
I'll second.
Moved by Jill, seconded by Karen. Discussion.
If we establish the audit committee and not the other ones, would we? Is this the board meeting? I'm pulling it up in the room, but this includes committees that we have not started yet, correct?
The calendar doesn't include committees, but the vote is to approve the calendar of the voting. The committees, yeah, the committees can be.
They wouldn't meet if they weren't
Correct. They
populated
haven't
with
been
members
established.
or established, so even.
And I would
if
just indicate on the calendar.
Okay, to be determined.
Yep.
Okay, so this is really to look at the scheduled bi-weekly meetings as planned for the year at this time. Does anybody have any concerns, questions, commentary about the board meeting schedule as it currently stands, I guess? Any discussions at all about that? No discussion. Then we can call to a question. All in favor of adopting said board meeting schedule? Opposed? Are you unopposed?
No,
Oh, no.
I second.
No, I thought Emily. Abstentions? Okay, so the motion passes unanimously, all board members. Okay, that brings us to item 14.2, which is the designation of delegate to the TST BOCES Executive Committee. We could move it and then talk about it. Oh, well, we really have to talk about it before we move it. Okay. So this is to appoint a board member to, as a board representative to the TST BOCES Executive Committee. Has anybody on the board ever served in this role in the past?
Here.
Yes,
Yes, I have to.
I actually never have. Can you say a little about what it is? Or what it does? Is that okay?
It's an opportunity to meet with the board presidents or their designees of all of the member districts of our BOCES, in addition to the superintendent of BOCES. And the meetings consist of both sharing out from all of the districts about whatever they wish to share out about, but usually about what's going on, any highlights or challenges that they're facing at that moment in their districts, and to kind of for shared learning purposes. And then there's often a presentation. Oh, we are also joined by the
Central New York School Board, Central New York School Board Executive Director, which we receive emails from on a regular basis, and then the
And then the
Rural
rural
School
one.
Board.
yeah, so a couple of like
Rural.
Oh, like, okay.
Rural.
sorry,
It's a-
and
it's a
so
possible word.
they also report out about kind of what they're seeing regionally, and then we sometimes will have presentations from people outside of the group about specific topics.
And how often do they meet?
They meet
Once a month.
monthly, usually it's the first Friday of the month.
In the middle of the day
Yeah.
for 2 hours.
Did you find it helpful to hear from other districts about what's going on?
Yes.
We
I think-
even took a recommendation, one district had stated about sending out a newsletter mid-year to the community. That's how we sent out about the capital project this year to the community of what community meetings we had.
Yeah, I think we could do a better job of coming back and sharing out more about what we're learning there for sure. So I think whoever is doing it this year, we think about that, but it's a nice opportunity to.
And how long are the meetings?
2 hours, 2 hours too.
Who are there folks who are
Ranging how, yeah, and some meetings, if they schedule it, they must.
And where do they take place? At BOCES?
At BOCES. And they do feed you a bunch.
Are there folks who are interested in participating?
I can participate.
Yeah.
And the reason why we've had it for the past, I think, 2 years, we've had 2 of us from Ithaca, just in case someone can't make it. We just let each other know that, and there's at least a representation.
Oh, so we're voting for an alternate and a regular, but you treat it as.
Yeah.
essentially you're voting regular.
Doesn't it?
Yeah,
Okay. Okay, so I could.
It's all motion.
Motion
Does
to adjourn.
anybody else want to though?
Yeah.
I mean, I would consider doing it, also consider being the third alternate if like 2 of you can't go.
I mean,
Happy
I'm happy to do it, but if you wanted to have that.
I just thought it would be helpful for context of what
You're welcome to do
things
it
did
then.
happen.
Sure.
Okay.
So I motion to designate Karen Yearwood as a board representative and Sarah Gardner as an alternate board representative to the TSD School Board Association for the 26-27 fiscal year.
Second,
Moved by Jacob, seconded by Jill. Discussion, debate, questions?
Just thank you both for
Yeah, thanks.
volunteering to do this. Thanks for doing it for the last couple of years. I know where we get next week.
Yeah.
Okay, so I call the question, all in favor? Opposed, abstention, okay, the motion passes unanimously. Okay, so that moves us to item 14.7 now. The resolution appointing the board designee for impartial hearing appointments. I just say motions. Oh, well, we got the same thing, but we need a volunteer.
Yeah, so I did this last year. It meant that twice I got an urgent call saying that I needed to come to the board office to sign something. There's New York state law that like with certain sorts of hearings, that essentially a board member needs to provide a signature in a very fast timeline for the district office to do what they have to do. I am happy to do it again, and if someone else wants to do it, I would not object.
Is this for suspensions?
No, it's
the
for,
only purpose is to have a board signature on an impartial hearing officer appointment. So it, it would be unusual for someone to say to the district, I'm not going to sign because you shouldn't have an impartial hearing because the impartial hearings are required by law.
yeah, so it's
So it's
literally,
very pro forma.
yeah, it's literally sign the document when you are needed. So happy to do it, but if someone else wants to, go ahead.
Anybody else want to?
So then I will motion.
You win.
I will motion to designate me, Jacob Schiffrin, as the member of this Board of Education responsible for. I have to read it, okay, for appointing an impartial hearing officer in accordance with the rotational selection process established by the Commissioner of Education in section 200.2E of the regulations of the Commissioner of Education to conduct hearings in the district pursuant to section 440.44041 of the Education Law.
Second,
Moved by Jacob, seconded by Jill. Discussion, debate, dialogue. All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Okay, motion also passes unanimously. Brings us to item number 14.8. No,
It's 9.
14.9.
Dang, I thought it was 14.
Yeah. Wait, 6, 7, 8, 14.9, Karen. A resolution establishing the 2026-2027 advisory councils. And I will entertain motions.
Motion to establish advisory councils for the 26-27 school year.
Second.
Moved by Jacob, seconded by Aaron. This is a motion that's intention is to establish the Climate Action Advisory Council and the Accessibility Advisory Council, excuse me. Any discussion, questions, debate, dialogue? Jill?
I'm very familiar with the Climate Action Advisory Council. Do you have many reports? I'm wondering if there's been a report from the Accessibility Advisory Council, and if so, where would I find that?
There has not been a formal written report. We have meeting minutes and quite a bit of documentation. Our initial meetings, the vast scope of this work have been hugely comprehensive. If you want a formal report, Emily and I can work and pull notes to get that to you in a way. It would more so be minutes, and I can prepare a report for whatever meeting we might have and provide more information.
So this advisory, and you'll remember that I've been out for a year, so
Right.
this advisory council was in effect this past year?
It came into effect in the spring.
Okay.
This past spring.
Yes.
Can you just talk a little bit about what it is? Well, I mean, yes, I can also just pull up the and who's involved. Oh my gosh, yes. I will pull up the resolution, which is available online in board docs, because I don't wanna spout. And you all could have pulled up the resolution in board docs to get to understand it as well. So.
For what it's worth, I understand the resolution. I think the questions I'm hearing are more about the work that's been done.
So the work that has been done is establishing goal setting, examining how we want to break this down into groups, looking at what accessibility is. We are currently in the process of having what I don't think we want to publicly call them accessibility audits of schools, but we're going to be doing accessibility walkthroughs. And I will be meeting with Dan and Chris Globitz next week to do an accessibility walkthrough. We're going to plan these to do them at one school at a time, and our pilot will likely be Northeast during Project Innovation, where we assess everything from the parking situation to sensory issues to volume to how accessible the building itself is, but also sort of the mindset. A big charge of this is understanding that because of budget constraints, you know, we have ADA compliance, which is required by law, but then you have accessibility, best practices, universal design for living and learning. So it's looking at how we can implement that across the district in a way that is cost effective, because we know that you can have a study of an entire garage or an entire parking lot. You can put into place something that would work in theory, but the fact of the matter is parents are still going to drop their kids off where they want to. They're still going to park in the accessible spaces. So it's doing that audit, looking at the mind shift. It's looking at how to talk to students about why this is important and having them tell their parents. And then also, if you're looking at the scope of the work, I mean, it's that. And then it's also, we had students in our last session in June who were speaking to how the transition is from one school to the next and how to make that better when you're handing a baton for a student with high support needs, how to make sure that a new ESP is informed, the new teaching team is informed, and make these transitions as smooth as possible for the benefit of the student, but also the entire school.
Sounds like really important work.
It is.
Is SEPTA involved with this too?
Yes, very much.
So Megan's comes.
Well,
to
Megan
the-
has Courtney is the current person who is coming. Yes.
Okay, and this sounds like it should also. So I guess my question as a new person is, how does the council work inform the board's work?
Well, that's the
Because this
whole
seems
point of the
very-
council. The whole point of the council is that, again, being on this board for 7 years and wishing that I could attend every meeting with my expertise in accessibility and disability rights and advocacy, I cannot be at every meeting. So the idea of this council is, how can we have everyone understand what accessibility is? Because some people just think it's wheelchairs. Why do we not have microphones in these meetings, for instance? Like accessibility, people do not understand accessibility on a wide-ranging factor. So it's utilizing this advisory council to inform all of the work of the board and to have a district-wide mindset shift. So the view of what this council is doing It's not gonna be a 1 year, 2 year thing. It is really just starting with low hanging fruit and then moving on from there. So the board, so we don't have to have someone attend every board meeting. This council, as we get up and running and as we get more established, will hopefully be informing every committee of the board and the board.
Yeah, it just seems like, to me, it seems like a really big conversation around special education and needs for students. And if it's like you or whoever is in this advisory council just meeting with Dan on these walkthroughs and hoping that nuggets of information of how to make things universally accessible.
It's not though. So here's the people that attend these meetings. That's just one meeting. The actual accessibility meetings has building leaders, Caitlin Bram, Carrie Burke, Samantha Little's been there, Daphne Shalulu. This isn't special education either. This is accessibility. Because not everyone with an IEP or a 504, accessibility is about everybody. Not everybody, not people that need accessibility are not necessarily in special education, right? So this isn't special education. This is district wide. And so there are district wide stakeholders at these meetings. Any board member is welcome. No one has come, and that's fine. But we have people from across the district attending these meetings. They're not one meeting with anybody. That is a one-off with Dan because we're trying to establish practice that we don't need to like waste people's time in a larger sense. We're trying to like focus in so we can bring that report back to the advisory council.
Just so you understand, I'm on like your team about this. I fully support this work. I just wonder if this is more like instructional design and coaching because it's around making things accessible for our students.
Well, I think that before you wonder, you should just come to a meeting and we'll get you the notes and you can say that because we have not talked about instruction in any way, shape, or form. It's really not that, right? It's about accessibility and providing materials and knowledge for people to make things accessible. We're not affecting curriculum in any way.
I guess I have a question. I mean, in some ways similar to my concerns about committees. All of the work that you're describing, similar to Sarah, I think I'm like philosophically in agreement with, but it sounds a little bit like superintendent's work as opposed to board work. So
Well, it's a council, Jacob, right? It's not a committee. And I'm just like one person. The people in that meeting report to Dr. Brown. So again, Caitlin Brand, Daphne Shalulu, Carrie Burke, these are people in that meeting. I'm just kind of leading the meetings and with my disability rights expertise, kind of leading those. I started this council seeing that it was very much a need that the board was not addressing, nor did the board seem to care about at the time. And I was like, all right, I'm the person that cares and knows, so I'm taking it on. I can report more to the board as this year goes on, right? I'm glad to share the work. I'm happy to talk about this all day long. It's what I do. So it's fine, but this is not some unilateral thing I'm doing. It's something that this is the first time anyone's asked about it or expressed interest, so thank you. But no one has seemed to care, so yay that you are. And again, district-wide leaders are doing this work and reporting back to the superintendent. I just happen to start the council that is the catalyst for acknowledging these things that need to be worked on.
I would love to keep things like the conversation very factual. I think that Karen's done a good job of kind of checking our language. I would prefer, at least as a single member of the board, for you not to insinuate that the board doesn't care, the board isn't interested, or this isn't an important issue to us. As you remind us all the time, not everybody can come to every meeting, we haven't had an opportunity to hear any report out from you until just now. This is the first time. So just I'm really excited to hear about all of the work that's going on, but let's not like make comments that are unequivocally not true. And let's not get into a debate about who cares about.
I'm not,
Please. I mean, you just
past conversations have revealed.
You said it multiple times now.
That's fine. I'm stating my impressions and that's okay. Like, this is the first time anyone's asked, okay? Literally, the first time.
I think like, again, I think that the issue with the.
Guys, I don't get semantics right all the time,
No,
so it's fine. I probably offended you and I'm sorry if that was offensive.
That's fine. I just want to respond again. I think that a challenge potentially, and so again, this might not be a challenge with the advisory council existing. I think it might be just a challenge with, again, any individual board member taking that role. You're describing again, like just because you have not had conversations with board members about it does not mean conversations are not happening or that conversations are not wanted. So again, I worry about, in the same way that I worry about me being the curriculum person, you being the disability person, Jared being the economic person, there should not be sort of like this filter point where in order to talk about something that might be a district-wide concern or issue, should be filtered through one person. So that, I guess that's my wondering about. And again, I think some of the solutions you named, Aaron, seem appropriate, like more like, you know, like more transparency about what's happening, reporting out, et cetera, but I just wanted to share those concerns.
Yes, Jim.
It's my understanding that one of the differences, two of the differences between committees and advisory councils are that the requirement of the advisory council is that it be time limited and that there be reports to the board.
So are there any reports?
It just started in the spring. There were no requests for reports from board officers. When there's a request for a report, I will provide one. I understand the time limit, and yes, I do recognize that, and that's as we start this work, and since this is only a few months old, I hopefully will like to, you know, expand this work or make it a committee, but it's a baby. It's a baby that we're just getting started. And after the first initial meetings, the amount of feedback, the amount of interest, the amount of passion, I mean, the lists of like what people envision for the work that this is doing is so large that we're really having to make it focus. So what has come to light as we started this work, which you had no way of knowing, is that there's a great interest from the district and that I could see it evolving into something more than a council because I'm aware of the restrictions that are in the language of what designates a council. But I want to remind folks, I can't remember when this resolution passed, but it's very recent and we've had maybe 4 meetings. So it's very new.
Additional discussion?
Well, it's, according to our policy, you have a time restriction for councils, just like with the climate action council. That, that's why we're voting on council to continue. And as the new board officers come into play, this is something that you could definitely designate when there will be a report out. But given, the interests, especially with, we have representation from, ICSD staff at every angle, and they go back into their respective groups. And given the interest in participation, I'm in agreement for this council continuing for this year.
I would agree. And Jacob, notwithstanding your concern about filtering, I'd also just want, there's a lot of work to be done. And there's more work to be done than all of us can do as individuals. So by understanding the concern, you know, we have to filter. Filter's not the word I would use. We have to delegate responsibilities. All 9 of us can't do all the things. So maybe if we could rephrase that as delegation, and I just point out, you know, there's been some discussion, you know, about, for example, me doing work at meetings that were open to all of us, and I just went and went, and Aaron's doing work. Thank you, Aaron, at meetings that were open to all of us. So, you know, I think a good focus is to make sure that all meetings are open to all people. But the fact that only some folks can appear at some meetings is just, I think, inevitable. And you know, I think we're blessed as a board to have 9 individuals who bring different backgrounds and strengths, and I just applaud that. Thank you again, Aaron.
Yeah, I agree with the concept of delegation. I agree that there's strengths on the board and we should leverage them. I think I still have my concern is something that I think what you've indicated is that would not be an issue in the future, like you weren't asked for reports. It wasn't time bound. I do think there should be a clear goal with report to time bound, and some of the things you shared, I do wonder if it gets more into school district business, like into superintendent's business as opposed to board business. But I think that's a conversation for the first shout out after your next meeting. The first share out after your next meeting, and I'm sure a shout out.
Shout out to the report.
Can we call the question? All in favor of the resolution on the table? All opposed? Abstentions? The motion passes Unanimous. Which brings us to our next agenda item 14.10, resolution setting date for public hearing on district safety policy.
Motion to approve the resolution establishing public hearing on the proposed district-wide safety plan and authorizing the district clerk to publish notice pursuant to New York State Education Law 2801.
Second.
Okay, moved by Jacob, seconded by Karen. Discussion, questions, comments
It's a long safety plan, and I appreciate all the work that's gone into it.
over all the years. Yeah. And so this is going to be proposed to be discussed at a district-wide meeting, August 11, 2026 at 6 p.m. to be held right here for those who wish to attend.
And will that follow the process of first reading and second reading?
Oh, that's a public hearing that day. That date is a public hearing.
Right, but then after the public hearing, will there be?
It's not a policy, it's just
Okay.
a safety, so it doesn't appear to a
Okay.
policy.
Does the presentation include just like, well, I guess that's a presumption, at a public hearing, is there a presentation of the changes that were made or just?
There are really no changes this year. This is the first year we haven't had any requests from the state to make changes.
Exactly.
And we over the last many years, we've made many changes that has made it 110 pages. So I think we've been very pretty thorough.
So we're talking about the safety plan that you sent out?
Yes, I think the question about the changes is that they had been included at the beginning of last year's document, as the required amendments. Now they've been incorporated.
And so
into
those are the things that I see with the
Yes,
cross
all the
out,
highlights
got
and
it.
stuff.
That's all we did. We just folded it into the
Got it.
rest of the document.
Okay. Thank you.
Additional questions, comments? Okay, we'll move the motion forward. All in favor? Opposed? Oh, sorry, I was in favor. Okay. Any opposition, abstention? Okay, the motion also passes unanimously. That moves us on to item 14.11, which is the resolution to expend funds for state mandated new board member governance and fiscal oversight training.
Motion to adopt the resolution approving board member Jill Tripp's attendance at NISBA governance and finance training in Lakeland, New York on August 14th, 15th, 2026, and authorizing the purchase of NISBA's self-guided online governance and finance training module for board member Sarah Gardner, together with associated expenditures in accordance with board policy and district procedures.
Second.
Moved by Jacob, seconded by Jill. Questions, discussion, debate.
Some of you might be wondering why I want to go to a town near Albany. Here's something that I first heard 4 years ago, and the answer is, I first heard it 4 years ago, and I'd like to hear it again and see what changes have been made. I find I learn better in person.
I loved the in-person training also because it was just so nice to talk to other new board members and see sort of like their perception of it. I just think it was a great experience. Training I won't speak to on camera, but the experience.
I wasn't wondering why you wouldn't go to the town. You're going to the training.
Yes. I always wanted to see Latham, New York. It's
Go to
my
the training.
We apologize to the good people of Lakeland.
Okay, before we get in more trouble with the town plan, all in favor? Opposed? Abstention, motion passes unanimously. Going to Latham. And that moves us to item 14.12, resolution authorizing the board member to attend NISBA annual convention and education expo.
Motion to approve the resolution authorizing the attendance and associated expenditures for board members Jacob Schifrin and Emily Workman to attend the New York State School Boards Association Annual Convention and Education Expo in Buffalo, New York, from October 22nd to 24th, 2026.
Second,
Moved by Emily, seconded by Jacob. Discussion.
similar to like when we talked about like Karen traveling to the conference like next year. I think that there's a lot of benefits going to this training. Emily and I went in person. I want to say Karen and Madeline went virtually, if I remember correctly, and it was just a variety of sessions. And I think we learned important things about, in particular, like goal setting, strategic planning, proper use of executive sessions, And just like got to meet a lot of people from other school districts. We talked to at least one school district where they actually travel with the superintendent and where the either the entire board or the majority of the board goes as sort of like a, how to describe that, an opportunity to build community, to explore different learning tracks. There are a lot of different tracks, and to almost have like board development without having the board development session with others. I just want to encourage glad you want to come, Emily, but I want to go and hold that more people might want to attend as well, because it is a really good experience.
Yeah, I actually wasn't gonna say anything, but I do wanna piggyback on that last part. My fantasy would be for everyone to go, and I know there's a million good reasons why people can't make it, but a lot of the boards that we were with last year used it as a really powerful team building experience on the top of the opportunity to learn so much stuff. So it would be very exciting for this conference specifically, but at some point, if not this one, for the group to be able to come together. Especially good for this.
Is there anyone else who's interested in adding themselves as attendings?
We have time by Friday, right? It's not today, so we have time, don't we?
Well, I think you said something
No,
about.
registration, and the hotel block opens, at 10 a.m. on August 11th. You guys have a board meeting on August 11th in the evening, which means I wouldn't be authorized to expend money to register you at that time. And those hotels fill up minutes. I've logged on 10 minutes late and I've had to book people 15 miles away to no.
50 miles is far, they're in the city.
Yes.
Really far.
Yes.
And this is not something you can vote for over email.
No.
I learned that this.
But with that said, people can still go, like, there is a way to do it.
Yes,
Even if
you
you
would
have
just
to stay
probably
15
not,
minutes
yeah,
away.
you would have to, an alternative would be, this would authorize me to expend funds for people to go, but I'm not registering you until August 11th. So you could have your name added and then tell me between now and the 11th you don't want to go. And we
Oh.
don't have to pass a resolution to unauthorize expenditure. of
Okay.
funds.
I will add my name to the list.
But we need a friendly amendment to the motion that's on the table.
Can you make a friend? Who makes a friend?
I could do, yeah, but then I would, yes, I could
Yeah.
do the entire board and then have people
Oh, okay,
contact
that's
to
great.
Yeah,
to opt out.
Do we?
I think we already know that some
Yeah, 'cause
people
I
are
know
opting
that
out though, so.
well,
Well,
she's already up there, but yeah, I think doing the whole board, they give the opportunity, there's no doubt about it.
To make this easier, would you withdraw your motion and then we can make a new motion?
I withdraw my motion, and now I would like to motion to approve the resolution authorizing the attendance and associated expenditures for all board members to attend the New York State School Board Association Annual Convention and Education Expo in Buffalo, New York, from October 22nd to 24th.
Second day.
Oh, yes.
okay,
With
additional
exception
discussion.
of my name, because I already know I can't. make it.
Okay,
When you
Make
say,
note that you are
when
not.
you say all
Yep.
board members,
Karen has already out there. Okay, all in favor? Opposed, abstentions, motion passes unanimously,
Thank you.
which brings us to the last item, which is agenda item number 15. Other discussion items, if such items are here. Anybody have any other items they'd like to discuss?
yes, there was email communication about a possible special meeting. Next week, to discuss a resolution. I'd like to know where we're at that.
I was gonna say, yeah, I know that, board business should not happen over email, but I always, with emails, I always assume that then we will talk about it with the whole group. So for context for everyone, there were Todd had raised correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, you're right.
Todd had raised, last fiscal year, a resolution or discussed, wanting us to, in my opinion, enhance or when there are to change some of our board direction and policy around the cell phone ban to be clearer, that we would like to see phones collected at the beginning of the day and returned at the end or when student leaves. That motion did not make it onto an agenda in our last year, and Personally, I think it would be advantageous for us to have a meeting sooner rather than later to vote on it. Because it gives pretty specific guidance to Dr. Brown about development of procedures. And I want to make sure that Dr. Brown and his team, should the motion pass, have adequate time to do the many things that need to happen to change existing practices, especially at the start of the school year. So that's my context and rationale.
Some stuff perfectly.
And my query or objection to that, first of all, I wanted to know, a resolution was presented to us via email. And I had asked a question and I still haven't seen the response. Was the superintendent involved in the forming of the resolution, because policy states that resolutions have to be.
Yeah, I thought I responded, I mean, I actually spoke to Dr. Brown before I sent it to anybody else. And Dr. Brown, we didn't seem to have any comments on the site. While I spoke up that, I sent it to you, you kind of responded, wanted to hear the rest of the board has to say, you didn't really have any input, I guess. Listen.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think I heard a different question. but
Okay.
She asked about help.
Form
Oh,
the
okay.
resolution, because resolutions have to be formed.
No, no, so I had drafted it, I sent it to Ellie for review, I sent it to Kate to review, and then I Dr. Brown to see if he had any comments, he didn't have any comments, so that to me was like an opportunity, I guess, to have input, if it's like was input, and if I apologize if I.
No, yeah, just to pause. Well, I mean, I had a conversation with Kate about it, and we could maybe have her come in and we can talk about that, but she seemed to indicate to me that it wasn't essential for board members to collaborate in writing resolutions with the superintendent, unless it's something very specific, like an employee hire. Like if we were saying, like, we want you to hire this person for this particular job, and that's the purview of the superintendent and not the board, and then we would have to collaborate. But if it's a policy that it is allowed to be written by the board, is my understanding. Just a point of clarification.
Well, I would disagree with that, because our policy states about getting involved the superintendent, because operationally, to make sure that whatever is in a resolution can be adhered by. If there's a financial obligation or commitment to this resolution, we should incorporate and get involved with the superintendent. In agenda setting for future boards, the board officers are meeting with the superintendent for agenda setting.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
no objection to it. I just don't know how, where it stands legally. We can invite Kate into a meeting to talk with us about resolution writing, so that we're in compliance with our own policy and New York State law, and find out the correct answer to that question. But regardless, we would like to collaborate as a board and superintendent, so I don't think there's any objections.
And to Karen's point, I think a really good example of this, and I think I'm the only one here who can call Ann Reichland a former board colleague, but she would always mention unfunded mandates that the state put on schools and districts that were just impossible. And I just want to say that in general, as a board, we can write any resolution, sure, but if we're giving a resolution and passing it over to the superintendent and expecting it to be done, I mean, I think we really need to consider feasibility of it even being possible. You don't want to set people up for unreasonable expectations. And so this is just in general, not necessarily about this policy, but just moving forward. I think that's something that we really need to think about. Just throwing something out and expecting it to be done because we deemed it to be done is not fair, it's not equitable, and it's not student-centered. So.
For what it's worth, Todd, you were gonna say something.
No, I mean, I think it is sincere, I think that's.
I wasn't talking about your policy.
Okay.
I was saying in general, as we're doing these, I haven't even read it all the way through yet, Todd, because
And what I wanted to bring up too is that we have a policy in place about the cell phone personal devices, as stated. And where we're seeing it to the end, we're nearing the end of that policy where we're supposed to report out to the state exactly what transpired this year. We our ITA president presented an I'll call it, could be an informal, formal survey from staff too about the policy, and there wasn't anything in the respondents, I can't remember if it was 70 odd or how many people responded, but a good percentage of them said that it's going okay, but there's still some concerns that we have, yes. So I'm just wondering, does this require further data gathering? We're near September to get all the information. before we start, putting forth this resolution to ban, like, even, I think it was tablets, watches, everything, and also.
I think we're failing, we're not meeting the mandate, and I think regardless of the mandate, like the data is out there that points to like the harm that this is causing. Disruption that it's causing to educators. This like literally, yesterday I'm driving up to Grassroots with my kids in the car. I never even asked my daughter about this, my daughter's in 6th grade. She's talking to my son who's in 4th grade about her and her one friend. And how she's like, yeah, we have these, I swear to God, I said, we have these pouches, no one ever used them. And like me and my one friend, like what we do is like we put our hoodies on and we'll put like one ear pod in and we'll kind of be like this. And then you put your phone in your backpack and like you can like do that. I'm like, this is my 6th grade daughter talking about her using her phone in class. And I was like, what class was it? And it was like course. She's like, well, no one pays attention to course. I'm like, well, you should be paying attention to course. But the fact is,
course it's great.
this is her
Well, I just wanna make-
unprompted telling my son like how to get away with using a phone in school. So like, how many cases of that are happening? And like, again, like I don't want our teachers to have to police the kids. Like, get the phones out of the kids' hands in school, stop giving them the opportunity. And like, I don't think we need more data.
And I also just wanna say to Karen's point, I don't mean to cut you off, but I was at that meeting and I heard the teachers and I didn't hear it was okay. I heard it was a constant pain point and it's a shift in their job responsibilities. Okay, I heard that they're trying to police the cell phones instead of
Can we motion to hear from?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to speak to, there are mixed feelings from the teachers surveyed. And the whether it's going well or whether there's room to grow varies by building. That schools that had previously established some pretty strong culture of no phones prior to this ban were having an easier time and we're feeling less of the onus being on teachers to really reinforce this. I spoke to the survey results, but I also urge people to go back and watch the very real public comment from the rank and file members who stepped forward to share their stories.
Yes.
That's what I was referring to.
I would like to suggest, as a process point, that we've sort of, I think over the course of the last year, we've seen sort of like a divergence, I would argue, two camps around cell phone policy. I sort of read it as like folks who would be having the cell phone policy regardless of whether there was a New York State mandate, and folks who are maybe doing it more from the, are we meeting the minimum requirements of the mandate, which according to, which I would agree with Karen that like, we appear to be meeting the minimum requirements of the mandate. Personally, I would be curious, is there a majority of board members who would like to discuss this in one of the dates that we discussed next week on Monday or Tuesday? Because if so, I think we should move forward. I don't think this is not an issue where I could conceive of a consensus.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can take it.
I just, I wanna make sure that if we are having conversations about this and doing it so soon, that we're also thinking about whether we can include people in those conversations that we would like to hear from, if anybody. It sounds like some people are just kind of have all of the information that they need. I also think that, Catherine only had 24 hours to turn that around, which is amazing, and we got a lot of information, but I think that I worry when there are just board members sitting at a table with no other stakeholders at the table, kind of making final decisions. And as someone who was on the policy committee last year and or the year before, I guess, and spent an enormous amount of time hearing from folks. And though I'm sure people sometimes watch those recordings, I just want to make sure that there was a lot of input. I hope that everybody, that all of us are very aware of what all of that input was from the people who are actually on the ground and in our classrooms and our school district leadership. I've already heard, I'm also, just to be really clear, like very unhappy with where things are at. With that said, I also have heard such mixed feedback from the stakeholders and leaders within our schools. And want to make sure that we're not making any decisions that are in a vacuum or based on. And I've heard enough comments that I don't agree with or that I don't think are holistically true, especially based on like what's happening in the district versus what's happening in every building. Is it really like, leadership that we need to really support and how they're implementing it? Is it like, there's just so many questions. And so I would love to see changes. I also hear all the same stories from my middle schooler and it drives me absolutely nuts. But I also want to make sure that we don't have like 5 or 6 or 7 board members sitting in the room and changing an entire policy without any input or discussion from others. And I don't know if that can happen on Monday.
But I think 2 teachers coming in saying that they're having issues with this, that's disrupting their classroom is too many. And it's like, why are we talking about, like, what is the benefit of a kid having a phone in school? There's none. So like, why are we coming up with policies to keep, hold on.
Where are they being sent to
I'm
school?
talking,
Phone.
I'm speaking.
That's my question, exactly.
Yeah, but we can't put that, because that's unrealistic. We have an opportunity to get phones out of schools. We have an opportunity to give educators an opportunity to do what they're supposed to do, which is to educate and to form bonds with kids. When you're policing, like you're an adversary, right? Like we're missing opportunities of connection and we're replacing those with opportunities of policing. And to me, there's no benefits of having a phone. You look at any of the data that's out there right now, 0 benefits. Oh, no, but what we're talking about is like what I'm saying is get rid of the phones. Instead of coming up with better policies for policing, get rid of the policing altogether.
You realize that getting rid of the phones is still, there's an enormous amount of policing.
But it's
Or lack of a different, like, there's an enormous amount of that, and you've seen from all the data and all the studies and what's happening in other districts. The kids are bringing a second, but like, it doesn't stop there, it just kind of shifts it.
it shifts it to like a very clear, place of a starting point, which is no phones. Like so
May I, just to make just one quick thought, and then I hope I give the floor to Gary. I think that part of the conversation around, I hear you talking almost a little bit about like micromanagement or a board making decisions outside of its purview. So what is?
No, that's actually not what I was saying at all.
Well, didn't you say like, a group of 5 to 7 people?
It's not about it being outside of the purview, it's just about.
About how
having,
informed it-
how important it
But
is.
so I just wanted to say,
Do that.
I hear, yes, so agreed. I think like one thing that strikes me about Todd's motion that I appreciate, which I know we'll discuss at some point, hopefully Monday or Tuesday, maybe not, we'll see. Is I see it setting guardrails as opposed to specific policy prescriptions. I think that's an important distinction. It's like a guardrail that I think is very appropriate for a board to present to a superintendent is we're good with the policy, but the guardrails are. It can't involve students having physical access to their phones during the school day. And it cannot involve a system where the same student could have a phone over and over and over again and get it returned to them without some sort of additional intervention that is not needed, or that does not exclude them from school or from class. Like those are the sort of guardrails that I saw within Todd's motion that I think would be productive to discuss. But
I just want to pause it only because I just feel like we're doing the meeting.
Yeah.
We're wondering if we should do the meeting, but now we're doing the meeting.
Yeah.
And I also feel like it's the end of a very long meeting. And probably this isn't the time really to have the full discussion. I'm not trying to cut it off, but I feel like I actually want to have it and we can choose as a
Let's do
board
it.
to designate a time for us to get together to specifically talk about this, because obviously it's a very important big topic. So we could send out a survey and try to come up with a time for next week to meet and begin this conversation as a board.
Do we have times
Well,
already?
that's what I'm disagreeing with and why I came up with this as other discussion items. Because now that we have the officers in place, and I'd like the resolution to be done properly. Because I'm saying properly because there was no connection with the superintendent, because I asked that question twice.
but I don't know if that's needed.
So,
According
so,
to-
and I'd like us to just have and what I also brought up is the same thing Emily was bringing up too, about when the policy was put in place, there were other stakeholders involved in the policy to hear back and get feedback. Not to put this on as a special vote-in or special meeting item for next week. That is just too soon. Can we put this to the beginning of like the August 11th?
No, because then we don't give enough time to actually implement something. This needs to be done immediately. I don't see why we can't have a conversation. So I don't think we can wait till August.
It then also gives again, just a perspective, it also gives Dr. Brown, I think it's actually more within the purview of Dr. Brown to be the one, given the guardrails from the board, then engages in the like in the operational details of how it's done. And of course, I think again, we just likely had an agreement around, like, I feel like we had sufficient data to say that it would be in the best interest of students in the Ithaca State School District to have some sort of like progressive policy around how do we set interventions in place when a student is repeatedly bringing like not getting their phones.
So any board member can ask for a meeting. So if somebody wants to make a motion to ask for this specific meeting, we can vote on it. If 5 board members want to have that meeting next week, we will. And if they don't, then we won't.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to have a special meeting at the beginning of next week, Monday, Tuesday, talk about cell phone policy.
Second.
Any additional discussion before we vote on that? I suppose. Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry,
Justin.
I'm never gonna decline not having conversations about things, so I'm always happy to do that, but I would like to advocate for, at a minimum, at least extending invitations to Dr. Brown, to Catherine, to Mary, and to other leaders that can help us kind of think through even the pieces that, even if we feel strongly about it, to understand what is actually realistic.
For a good meeting. Yeah. Okay, so under those terms and conditions, all in favor of getting together for that meeting? All opposed? Okay, abstentions? Okay, the motion passes 6-3, and with that, I think we can conclude our. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Other discussion items. I apologize.
Yeah, so. By the way, I just want to say I share Karen's views on prior matters, so that's mine. We do have an issue that's going to require potentially board attention sooner rather than later. Joe and I were just sidebarring on it, but if folks haven't seen, there's been a proposal for tax abatement of 230 housing units in Southworks. You would be forgiven for not noticing this. This also happened over the last 2 weeks in the lull summer. But there is going to be a hearing, I believe, on July 29th about this. So my understanding is it's 230 housing units, a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. The project is Southworks affordable housing, so I presume there's an affordable component of this. It's probably something I can presume that many on the board would be in support of. However, the proposed abatement, as I'm reading it, and I could be wrong, it is a 30-year period.
Jeez.
What
And
is
again,
it?
maybe I'm reading this wrong.
Can you tell us where, like, just so we have a common frame of
Yeah,
reference?
I'm pulling this off the Tompkins County Industrial Development Agency website.
Thank you.
And again, with the caveat and the apology that I have really dived into this, but my quick reading of it is that we're looking at a 30-year, I mean, just read it here. Beacon is requesting a sub-area pilot fixed at 12% of NOI in year 1 with 2% increase for 30 years. Okay, so again, I haven't studied this in detail, but we're looking at, and I think we should all do that. I guess the question I'm asking is if we're going to come together next week, maybe that should be also on the agenda, and then that would afford us all the opportunity to read through, and I can certainly share the links, and then maybe a consideration that do we want to, as a board, to present an opinion about this. The numbers we're looking at, I think, a loss of $190,000 of revenue. But the important thing to understand is that this is a loss of revenue for the first of many advertised projects. So it's not just one project, but I think our position on this is potentially going to be a position that's going to be taken on many further projects to come. So I think it's worth thinking about.
Yeah,
And in the past, it has been well received when the school district or some representative of the board show up and say that the board has passed a resolution.
I'd like to add as well, so we wrote a resolution and I worked with Tompkins County legislator on this to try to get a school district voice, and we went back and forth with language, but it ended up potentially being a BOCES person, but basically representation for schools on the IDA. And it went to the governor and it did not make it. And then that just kind of like fizzled. This past year, I checked with folks, there's just not interest. And so in addition to going to those meetings, you know, figuring out, if we're talking about board work, figuring out how to have a permanent voice on the IDA that speaks for schools and can have someone there voting and pointing out the inequity of these projects is really important, especially when we're talking about budget and taxes.
And if we're talking about affordable housing, when you're in the 2 unit type, that's gonna be some kids, right? So like, and those directly across from South Hill, you're
Yes.
gonna go right to South Hill, and if you have an extra 50 kids all of a sudden getting, you know, influxed into the school with zero funding for it, like that makes a huge impact. So like, and affordable housing is great, but like we need to look at like what is gonna be the impact on the district, right? Like how can we absorb it? Because I don't know that we could. So like, what can the developer do to potentially offset for, you know, the school district? So thank you for bringing it up. It's a really important issue.
And this is also a topic that was discussed at TST BOCES School Board Association too. Because yes, we stated that Ithaca should be represented, and we've had a representation before, but yet it's Tompkins County. So they were stating that, okay, which school should have a representation? And we have a good opportunity now because we have new legislatures. Because of some of the prior legislatures that didn't want the school represented because they said, oh, they'll just vote down everything. So.
Nice. I, for what's worth, I agree with everything said. I'm really glad you brought this.
Could that be placed on the agenda for whatever, I'm sure we do decide it was Monday or Tuesday, I won't be here if it's Tuesday, but I can Monday up here, but.
Yeah, we didn't decide, but we can send out a poll.
I think it's between Monday and Tuesday, right?
Then we should decide.
She's got dentist.
So
We-
I'll make it work.
Did we say Tuesday?
Well, we were gonna maybe have our board development meeting on Tuesday at 4, because I think that was when the most people could come. Of all the dates that were sent out, maybe there's 7 or 8.
I thought it was the special voting meeting is what I had read. Is it word development now?
The poll originally was for. It's confusing because we've been through a lot of it.
That's, yeah.
I'm just curious, Karen, like. So just so I'm thinking forward, the goal of this conversation would be for us to determine essentially a representative and a collective board statement to come and speak at this meeting. Is that accurate?
I think the goal is for us to study it between now and then, come with full information, and then I think we would discuss whether as a board we want to send one or many individuals to speak, or whether we like to submit a written response. My a priori, probably a written document from the board might be the strongest. That'd be debate.
That's really helpful.
Now, I'm hearing conflicting things, and we keep saying that we don't wanna operate in a silo, but yet you're saying Monday, a special board meeting and then a board development. We never came to a conclusion about a board development.
That is
When
true.
that poll went out, it says board development session,
That's right.
right? And our calendar says today's organizational meeting and to be determined, another meeting for board development. But we never came to a conclusion.
That's true.
And if we are doing a board development where there was a structure suggested and everything, are we getting a third party in or what? And we should decide on things like that before we say, because. And now you're saying, oh, Monday and Tuesday, a special meeting and a board development meeting, what are we doing?
Oh, so
Well, yeah,
I was under the impression that we have 2 meetings in our near future. One is our board development session, and one is a special voting meeting to discuss the cell phone policy.
So
And I think what I'm gonna say is
And-
piggyback off the one.
I thought maybe we could combine.
And that sounds like a good idea, and now also it sounds like because of this time issue with July 29th, it would be good to discuss and have this also on the agenda. So
what I'm hearing is a suggestion to combine a special voting meeting with the board development session.
But not everyone's gonna be here,
Yeah, that's,
so.
Well, we can set up our special meeting that Todd proposed. And we can choose that time And then we can reconvene about the board development session through sending out another poll and getting dates and trying to get as many people at that meeting as possible and talking about the parameters. I was only mentioning it because we had a poll outstanding, and so I was just referring to that, which I think 8 board members or something said they did on Tuesday. So we can choose a time right now for our special meeting, and we'll revisit the board development question after. If that works for board members.
So we could have 8 people on Tuesday.
We only need 5.
Yeah,
To have a-
so that's right now.
Ideally, everybody.
That's why they have the availability.
That's
Yeah,
right.
That makes, yeah.
I was a maybe, I was having guesses,
Okay.
I'm a no.
So you're not on Tuesday. So,
That, do as you wish.
well, no, you
Not
brought it.
you as you wish.
Well, I mean.
I don't really.
Not the language.
You brought up, you brought up an item and it would be important for you. to-
I accept the correction. Yeah.
So, we could send out another, maybe I could ask Emily to send out another email today to get times for next week, to try to come up with what day works best for our special voting meeting. And also a poll for a board development meeting in the next couple of weeks to see what we can do for that. And then Jacob and I will talk about the results of that poll. I'll get back out in touch with the board and we'll figure out our meeting times, and if everybody can check their email and try to respond, as soon as possible, that would be great. Because we can get it on the.
Well, we have 7 people available on Tuesday and Derek's not available, that's the hang up. Cause my solution would be, is it possible for you to write up? It sounds like you know about this, you have some background, so maybe ideal ideal solution for us, and we could talk about it at the meeting.
Because the question is, do we support or not support Southworks?
Right.
Request for a further tax abatement? That's the question.
Yeah, I'm happy to discuss, I mean, I can speak very intelligently about the subject, so.
Was there a difference between the voting on Monday versus Tuesday?
I just think so.
Because I thought it was.
But now Garrett said he just changed, which is fine.
I have
But you said you could make Monday, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Monday, I have 2 definitive no's. 1 maybe, which is you're now a yes, Eric? For Monday?
Yes.
So, okay, so I have 2 definitive no's and 7 yeses.
So it's the 6 of 1.
And what about
I'm a maybe for both, because my work commitment has changed.
Okay, and for Tuesday at 4.
Were you a yes in the
I
Monday
think I
already?
was a yes somewhere.
You were a yes for both, originally. This full went out a while ago. I have. Garrett, you said you're a no for Tuesday now? So I have 2 no's for Tuesday and 7 yeses for Tuesday.
And Karen's a yes for Tuesday.
Karen and Nate.
Oh,
For the next.
okay.
We have 7 yeses and no and a maybe, or we have 6 yeses.
We have the same thing.
Yes, it's exactly 4 days.
2 no's, 1 maybe.
Seems like I should.
Yeah, let's do Monday.
Is that okay? I don't really know how to decide such things, so I struggle with that.
Down.
I'll get better at it.
You're good on Mondays? You're good on Monday? Great, let's do Monday.
So we have
Sunday at 4 o'clock.
so we're voting now on Todd's motion.
Are you able to do that?
That's not.
Vote on scheduling a meeting.
Well,
What about Tuesday?
We won't vote then, damn it.
Back by Tuesday.
And
What about like Mary and Catherine?
Are you available Monday?
That'd be Tuesday would be better.
Okay.
And Mary?
What time Monday?
Well, it sounds
4
like,
p.m.
That's 4
I think it'd be great, Dr. Browser, I think Tuesday. And again, as far as the affordable housing piece, I think that was about that. I could even, Garrett, we could talk before the meeting, so like if there's like anything specifically that you wanted to bring up.
What time?
But can you phone in, like, it's, a person?
In the future, if you are inviting me and members of the team who, particularly in July, and traditionally, I've told every administrator that this is the month you take your vacation and you're not going. And so I feel a certain kind of way now asking my colleagues, change your plans with the 24 hours notice. Particularly, and I'm one of those folks, I gotta call my pops, who's not any way for me to be there on Monday and Tuesday. And say, I got I'll serve at the public board, I'll be here. But I hate to look at my colleague and say, all right, change up everything, when I told them July was the time to take your vacation.
No, I don't think you have to be, like, do you feel like you have to be there in person? You feel like
Again, this is not about me, it's about, this is such a robust conversation that included dozens of folks to develop what I think I'm hearing is a policy shift. I would want to alert dozens of folks that we're gonna be talking about this policy shift potentially, and to help me informed. And that, we need some time to bring those people to the table, to do this in a way where the folks who vote yes on shipping the policy aren't gonna feel the heat from my colleagues who are on vacation
Yeah,
this next couple weeks.
in all fairness, I've been trying to bring this forward and it wasn't, it was stonewalled.
And let me be clear,
So, like,
in all fairness, we're already way too late to put in place significant shifts to the ways in which we manage. So 2 weeks is not gonna make much difference. I think I heard lockers are putting something in place to have kids turn it in, like just the place in order to get that here would take weeks, if not months. Last year we were talking about it, there were 6-month backlog. So again, I'm just saying that I feel the pressure and the urgency. And yes, but it's already too late to get something done from my perspective. We can plan to do something, but not knowing when the material will get here, how it will get in place, etc. But I will share that whenever y'all bring this meeting up.
Yeah, I know, I've been trying to bring it forward.
I think one thing I mentioned, the response to South Works does have a hard deadline. The hearing's July 29th. So that's a hard deadline. It's also an issue that I believe that the board can debate itself without bringing in school building leaders and so on. So I think there's a difference in the audience that needs to be reached.
Agreed.
And there's a difference in the hardness of that. So yeah, go from there.
Does that need to be a public? Vote to decide that we want to. Like when we have like responded to things via email in the past, you know, Sean, we didn't do that publicly necessarily.
The board plans to pass a resolution like you did
Maybe we
with the
should-
previous South Works subject, but it didn't need to be a public.
But to like decide to write, is that, so would a resolution be required to like draft a email?
If it's from the whole board, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Alright, so we.
I just subtract.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many iterations here and I don't feel like they're prepared to come down on an absolute, time right now. I think we could make a time to meet next week that doesn't involve other people. We can just talk as a board. We can then have a follow-up meeting where we invite additional people to come in and also at that meeting, talk about the time sensitive.
So is that a board development session?
No. Board meeting on Monday or Tuesday, whichever one we decide. It will not necessarily include all the parties, but we will begin a discussion together and start to talk about it there and then figure out what we want to do for the next step, where we probably will invite other stakeholders to that meeting.
Okay.
Does that make sense, Debbie? I feel like we're doing the best we could do without,
And for what it's worth, I hear your feedback, Dr. Brown, on sort of like timing and piggybacking off what Todd said, I do think that this was there was a different level of we were not able to get this onto the agenda last year. And we wanted to, I know like a couple of us wanted to, and so we don't like the timing of it either. And that's not how we intend, certainly as an individual board member, that's not how I intend on like operating moving forward. But I do share Todd's concern that this is an urgent thing that we can address. And so apologize in advance if it does move forward for any stress in my comments, but I think it'll be good and perfect. And I trust you and your team to be able to follow whatever guardrails for the festival.
so Tuesday at 4, is that the final? Is that our final time? What we decided? Or
No, it's Monday at 4.
Monday, 4 o'clock. Okay.
How about Wednesday? Yes.
Wait, hold on. No, we didn't say Monday because we did, right? But then we pivoted a little bit because he talked like, could you phone in? I think it could be helpful. You know, I don't think you need to drive it. I think that would be unnecessary. I think your feedback is important. Like Mary could be there again. I'm not asking people to like do patients.
I don't think we should do that.
No?
I think Adam made a good point that we use that time internally if the board wants to kind of talk about it, and even land on like the questions that we even want to ask, but I mean, Dr. Brown's like going to visit his family, it's a few days away, like we don't even know what Kathy's doing, like Mary, like, I just think
Let's just.
It's just
discuss it.
unreal.
Yeah.
It's
What
not-
did you say, Catherine?
So just tell me when it is.
Yeah.
If only.
Harry, are you here?
No, I think it's a question of like, I think there's a little bit of a level of respect about just not asking a bunch of
Listen,
people who are working full-time right now to like show up in a few days with lots of answers to all of these questions.
let's just decide, we're moving it forward as a board to start. We're gonna have a meeting where we can talk between now and then about, you know, invitations and things like that, but
Sure.
we gotta get something on the books, and we have to close this meeting out.
Yes.
So are we at Monday?
So let's do Monday so Garrett can be there.
Okay, so Monday, 4 o'clock, we are calling a special, we're gonna make a resolution, I don't think we voted on it, right? To have a special board meeting.
We don't need
Is
to.
that, well,
You don't need to
Oh.
resolve to have a special.
Okay.
meeting. Anyone can call.
oh, okay, I don't know if we needed 5 hands to vote or something. Okay. All right, so Monday, 4 o'clock, we will be meeting as a board to discuss this. Okay, anything else?
Find out my colleagues for making it through this meeting, and
You made it through.
I appreciate all the robust conversation, and I'm excited.
Same.
All right, thanks, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.